Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 13, Planning to Commit Violence. After Linley purchased 10 amethysts, he left the sales counter, heading towards a distant sales counter. This sales counter was very large, and it had all sorts of items on display. The viewers of the sales counter were quite numerous as well. Many were spending money to buy things. This place was where defensive artifacts were being sold. Linley, you want to buy a defensive artifact? Delia looked at Linley, puzzled. I don't need it. Linley laughed as he looked at Delia. Delia, your defensive armor is only demigod level. It is too weak. Let's buy a god level armor. Since they were preparing to join the Fiend examination, they had to increase everyone's strength. Strength, aside from personal power, also included their divine artifacts. If they were to participate in the Fiend examination, Linley was worried most about Delia. As for Bibi, when they had left the Yulon plain, Lord Beirut had given Bibi quite a few treasures. As for himself, he already had a soul-protecting sovereign artifact, albeit slightly damaged. All right. Delia didn't refuse. She understood that when she grew stronger, Linley wouldn't be as worried about her, and she would be able to help him more. The prices of these defensive artifacts truly do exceed the prices of offensive artifacts. Linley chuckled, then sighed. God-level offensive artifacts were just roughly 1,000 inkstones, while God-level defensive artifacts were generally 5,000 or 6,000 inkstones. To Linley's team, this wasn't much at all. People continually entered and left the main gates of Redbud Castle, but there was one person who stayed right there by the sides of the steps, always watching the main gate. Those three really are slow. Isn't it just chopping? The god cursed softly. They've never come to Royal Wing City. They'll most likely wander about for a long time. They are enjoying themselves inside, while I'm slowly waiting here. Indeed, Linley's team was very curious. This Redbud City had many items that expanded Linley's horizons. Naturally, they had to have a good stroll and gain some experience. The god suddenly saw a human figure. He immediately headed over and said respectfully, Lord Edmund. Edmund nodded slightly, then said calmly, the three still haven't come out. Right. Not yet. The god nodded. Edmund frowned, then turned to look at the gate. They've already sold what they came to sell. I imagine they should be coming out from this front main gate. Edmund was in no hurry. He just waited quietly outside. It is Lord Edmund. The other members of the Black Dragon tribe, when departing Redbud Castle, saw Edmund standing there. Many of them assembled up behind Edmund. Here they are. Edmund's eyes lit up. That metallic life form really is expensive. Delia was sighing. Linley nodded as well. Ordinary metallic life forms cost millions already, but high-level, powerful ones cost tens of millions. Those large ones actually cost over 100 million inkstones. Bibi, your grandpa really is powerful. Linley sighed in praise as he looked towards the nearby Bibi. Naturally. Bibi puffed his chest out proudly. Lord Beirut's metallic castle was a high-level metallic life form. The price of such a creature in Redbud Castle was more than 100 million inkstones. As they spoke, the three of them walked out of the first main hall, following the tide of people outwards. Linley. Suddenly, someone called out at the gateway. Linley turned to look. It was Deborah. Deborah. Linley laughed as he spoke out. Oh, you sold your things. Linley said. He noticed that next to Deborah was a large group of people, all of whom belonged to the Black Dragon tribe. Deborah laughed. I was just selling a single god artifact. I heard you went to the third floor. You really are amazing. Deborah's words caused the nearby members of the Black Dragon tribe to stare jealously at Linley. In the infernal realm, making a fortune was simply too hard. Oh. Linley laughed calmly, carefully inspecting the looks on the faces of the Black Dragon tribe's members. Actually, when he went to the third floor to sell items, Linley had already anticipated that he wouldn't be able to avoid the attention of all the members of the Black Dragon tribe. It was possible that he would be discovered, but so what if he was? After all, he didn't have any plans to return to the Black Dragon tribe. All right, let's head out. Edmund, standing in front, spoke out as he led his subordinates away. Edmund didn't even look at Linley. The group walked a few dozen meters towards the direction of the pillars, moving in a direction that would bring them back out of Royal Wing City. But Linley's team took a curved route, heading towards a different direction. "Linley, where are you going?" Deborah said with surprise. At the same time, Edmund and many others halted, turning to look. "Oh, I'm not going back to the Black Dragon tribe." Linley laughed as he said. "Not returning to the Black Dragon tribe?" A gentle voice rang out. Edmund led his subordinates and walked over. Linley, seeing that it was Edmund who had come, couldn't help but sneer coldly in his heart. This old fellow. "I'm not going to the Black Dragon tribe," so he, the chief steward of Sturton and a high god, immediately came over? Does he think I don't know what he is scheming? The distance from here to the front main gate of Redbud Castle was less than 100 meters. There were many people here. Linley's group, standing there, wasn't noticeable at all. "Lord Edmund." Linley smiled as he spoke. "Your name is Linley, right?" Edmund laughed calmly. "Your two friends are both gods. In our Black Dragon tribe, they can be considered elite members. It is truly a pity that you are planning to leave the Black Dragon tribe." "Right. I actually have taken a liking to you. I recently lack for subordinates. Would you be willing to follow me?" Linley remained very modest and courteous. "Thank you, Lord Edmund, for your kindness. Only, it truly isn't necessary. Myself, my wife, and my brother here came to the Black Dragon tribe only because we had just arrived in the infernal realm. However, I still feel gratitude for the care the Black Dragon tribe has shown me in this period of time." Edmund couldn't help but be startled. But seeing the meek smile on Linley's face, he felt a stirring of anger in his heart. This guy. He knew that Linley was carrying a fortune on himself. Even he, Edmund, wouldn't find it so easy to accumulate such wealth. After all, he, Edmund, had fused with the divine spark to become a high god. This was why he had always followed Sturton. Sturton made most of the money, while he only made do with leftovers. "We're leaving now," Linley said with a smile, then turned. Swoosh. Very suddenly, 6 gods appeared in front of Linley. "You want to leave?" one of the gods said coldly. Linley was startled, and then his gaze turned icy. "F***ck, what, you want to fight?" Bibi's voice suddenly raised in pitch and volume, spreading in every direction. Many of the nearby people who had been moving about turned to look in their direction. Bibi jumped up and shouted out, "Milords of the Redbud army, these people want to beat us, they want to fight." The distance from here to Redbud Castle's gates was less than 100 meters. At such a close distance, those bored Redbud army soldiers milling about at the gates to Redbud Castle naturally could hear Bibi's shout. Although they were sent here to maintain order, normally who would dare cause trouble here? Naturally, they were always very bored. Now, hearing someone call out for them, they actually grew excited. "Hey, something's happening." A black-cloaked, muscular man called out hurriedly. "I'll go take a look." "Brothers, let's all go check it out." 10 or so Redbud army soldiers all walked over curiously. Seeing the Redbud army soldiers come over, Edmund's face instantly grew ugly to behold. He was a high god, true. But he had only become one through fusing with the divine spark. In the infernal realm, there were far too many people that were more powerful than him. The steward of a tribe could perhaps show off his power and authority in that tribe, but in Royal Wing City, he wasn't even worth a fart. What's going on? The 10+ Redbud Army soldiers walked over, their leader shouting, "I heard someone say that someone wants to fight. This is Royal Wing City. Who dares to fight?" The shouts of the oncoming Redbud Army soldiers caused the men of Edmund, who had been so wild and arrogant just moments ago, to instantly no longer dare to act brashly. "Milords of the Redbud Army, these people belong to my tribe, while I am the leader of this expedition of my tribe to the city. I was just lecturing them. There's nothing else," Edmund explained, while the violet-robed warrior frowned and said, "Oh, all one tribe? Right. They belong to our Black Dragon tribe." Someone near Edmund hurriedly said, "Shit, when we joined the tribe, it was said that we can leave whenever we want. What right do you have to forcibly make us go back with you?" BB shouted. "Edmund." Linley looked straight at him. "I was respectful to you just now, and even addressed you as Lord Edmund. You should have known your place, though. This is Royal Wing City, not the Black Dragon tribe. I'm telling you right now, the three of us are formally withdrawing from your Black Dragon tribe." Edmund's face was exceedingly ugly right now. But with the Redbud Army soldiers nearby, he didn't dare to be arrogant. "Oh, how interesting." A very handsome, silver-haired, violet-cloaked youth with a single horn laughed. "In the infernal realm, although slaughter and warfare is common, everyone has their own freedom. Your tribe can't force someone else to do something, right?" Edmund's group didn't dare to make a sound. BB bowed deeply towards the Redbud Army soldiers, chortling, "Thank you, milords. Otherwise, this old guy was preparing to use force." "Don't worry." The violet-robed, silver-haired youth laughed as he spoke. "This is Royal Wing City. Royal Wing City has Royal Wing City's rules. No matter if you are a demigod or a high god, you are not permitted to commit violence. Whoever dares to commit violence, haha. We brothers have been quite bored." The Redbud Army soldiers looked towards Edmund and the others. Cold sweat was beading on Edmund's forehead. How could a small tribe like theirs dare to offend the terrifying Redbud Army? "Milords of the Redbud Army, that isn't the case. Just now, I simply was unwilling to part from them, so I said a few words to them. I wasn't planning to stop them. If they want to leave, I'll naturally accept that. Everyone knows this. Nobody will stop them from leaving," Edmund said hurriedly. Hearing this, Linley had to admit, this Edmund really was thick-skinned and shameless. "Oh, so that's the case. Good. You can all leave, then," the silver-haired, violet-robed youth said with a calm laugh. Edmund and the others let out secret sighs of relief. After bowing, they left after glancing at Linley. "Threatening me?" Linley glanced sideways at Edmund as well. This was Royal Wing City. Linley had never been concerned about Edmund. That old guy. When I think of how terrified that old guy looked just now when the Redbud Army came, I want to laugh. Haha, BB was clearly very self-delighted. Linley and Delia, seeing how BB was acting, couldn't help but begin to laugh as well. "Let's go find a residence first," Linley said. Delia frowned. "Linley, do you remember? Deborah said that each stay in Royal Wing City cost hundreds of inkstones. Let's go take a look first." Linley felt very puzzled as well. If a single night was so expensive, then the situation really was a bit too terrifying. Linley's group first came to the waiting room of a seemingly luxurious hotel that was fairly close to Redbud Castle. The hotel's waiting room had some decorations which forced even Linley to sigh in praise. The quality of the sculptures here weren't lower than his at all. "How are the living costs here calculated?" BB chattered. The violet-robed, long-haired, sharp-eared beauty laughed. "Here, each stay costs 800 inkstones. Linley, Delia, and Bibi were shocked upon hearing this. As long as you stay here for a year or less, no matter how long you stay, the price for the stay is the same. If, however, you were to stay for a year and a day, you would need to pay 1,600 inkstones. The violet-robed, long-haired beauty said with a laugh. Linley's group let out sighs of relief. This place was different from the Yulon continent. Hotel fees weren't calculated by the day, they were calculated by the year. It made sense. When deities were training and meditating, they would spend months in seclusion each time. Despite that being the case, if the cost for a year is 800 inkstones, then 10,000 years would mean they would earn 8 million inkstones. And that's just for a single room. This hotel has many rooms in it. Linley was secretly shocked. The hotel business here really is profitable. The rooms in every hotel in Royal Wing City consisted of a standalone residence and courtyard. After all, deities preferred quiet when training. Do the three of you plan to take up residence? The violet-haired woman said, looking expectantly at Linley's group. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 14, Fiend Castle. Linley, although not a miser, wasn't a spendthrift either. Linley's group left the hotel, then wandered about Royal Wing City for quite some time, visiting over 10 hotels before choosing a quiet, elegantly designed hotel. The price of staying here for a year was 210 inkstones. After paying 210 inkstones, he received a black talisman. Linley's group entered their residence, pushing open the door to their courtyard. In front of them was an elegant residence, with a flower garden taking up a third of the space of their residence. In the rear was a simple, unadorned, two-story building. Linley and Delia looked at the building, and they couldn't help but feel satisfied. "Boss, this courtyard is pretty quiet." Bibi chortled. "Boss, I'm going to live upstairs." Bibi hopped directly onto the second floor. Moments later, Bibi flew back down, his lips pursed. "This hotel is so stingy. Aside from the bed and chairs, there's nothing inside. This environment is already quite good." Linley nodded in satisfaction, and then withdrew 4 azurite slabs, handing 2 to Delia and 2 to Bibi. "Bibi, Delia, each of you take 200,000 inkstones. In the future, if you need to buy anything, make your own decisions." Heh. Bibi winked, accepting them. Delia nodded and accepted them as well. Linley raised his head, looking at the sky. It was currently the afternoon. The blood-red sun still hung high in the air. It is still early. It isn't even dark yet. Royal Wing City's curfew forbids others from being on the streets at midnight. Let's go out and have a look around. Linley's first thought was of the Fiend Castle. Let's head straight to the Fiend Castle and see what the Fiend test is all about. Fiend Castle. Delia and Bibi were both excited. Without wasting any time, the three of them immediately headed out towards the Fiend Castle. The ancient Fiend Castle was completely black, especially that enormous carved symbol of the Fiend Castle, that blurry face with that devilish red cyclopean eye. Anyone who saw it would never be able to forget it. The people who headed to Fiend Castle clearly weren't as many in number as those who went to Redbud Castle or Black Sand Castle. However, although the people heading to Fiend Castle were fairly low in number, when they strode on the streets, these people exuded a sort of confidence. The majority of them had fiend medallions on their chest. Clearly, they were all fiends. The elites of the infernal realm. Linley's group climbed up the stairs, striding into the main hall of the first floor of the Fiend Castle. "So quiet," Bibi said softly. The main hall on the first floor of the Fiend Castle was very wide. There were very few people here in the main hall, only a few hundred or so. The few hundred people were spaced out in the wide hall, giving a very sparse feeling. Linley's group immediately saw the Fiend application counter. That counter had a jade-haired beauty seated behind it. On the shelf behind her, there were many bottles of wine. Una, 1 cup of ole oule wine, the red bottle. A bald, black-armored man placed a piece of azurite on the table. Hey, can't you see I'm busy? Wait a second. The jade-haired beauty ignored him, continuing to chat with the black-haired youth in front of her. Angie, what do I have to say in order to convince you? Last time, over 1,000 people participated in the Fiend trials, and only 53 succeeded. There were 28 others who managed to survive, although they didn't pass the trials. The others, more than 900 people, all died. You participated in 2 trials, and you were lucky enough to survive twice despite failing. You were lucky twice. But are you going to be so lucky a third time? The jade-haired women urged frantically. Linley's group walked over as well. The black-haired youth said in a low voice, Una, although I know I was lucky the last 2 times, I don't want to give up. I almost succeeded the last 2 times. This time, I will definitely succeed. Can't you just train for a while longer, increase your strength, then try again? Una let out a sigh. I'm responsible for the Fiend applications. I don't know how many people like you I've seen, who want to become Fiends. The chance of death in the Fiend trials is however very high. Generally speaking, only a few dozen in 1,000 will succeed, while the total number survivors never number more than 100. Angie, go back and train some more. When your power rises to a new level, come again. At that time, I will definitely agree to your registration. Una urged. Raise my power. The black-haired youth shook his head. I'm already a god. I have gained insights into 3 different profound mysteries of the laws. But I know, if I continue to train, the amount of time it would take me to gain insight into a 4th mystery will be unthinkably long. And so what if I do gain insights? My power won't improve greatly. Only when I become a high god will it improve. But that is too far away. Can it be that I will be forced to fuse with a divine spark? I am not willing. What's more, I don't have enough money to buy a high god spark. The black-haired youth looked at the jade-haired woman. Una, don't stop me. Ha ha. Suddenly, the nearby bald, black-armored man started to laugh loudly, his laughter immediately echoing throughout the quiet main hall. Many fiends looked towards him, who turned his head to look at his friends. Brothers, come and take a look. This little fellow managed to stay alive in 2 Fiend trials in a row. He truly is lucky. But now, he is going to take the trials for a 3rd time. Ha ha. Oh, he survived twice in a row. Quite a few people came over, all of whom had Fiend medallions on their chest. Lucky enough to survive twice, and he wants to try again? Is he tired of living? These fiends all laughed calmly as they walked over. The black-haired man lowered his head, frowning. His entire body quivered slightly. This was an insult. Una. The bald, black-armored warrior laughed loudly. This little fellow wants to die, so let him. Why urge him otherwise? Let him attend the trials and die. Shut your mouth, Crompton Kalang Pu done. Una stared at him while barking. The bald, black-armored warrior was startled, and then enraged. Una, how dare you speak to me in such a way? What? Can't I? Una's chin lifted up slightly, and she stared coldly at the bald black-armored warrior. Crompton, I insist on talking to you in such a way. What about it? Mother ***. Crompton, enraged, slapped the table, staring at Una with a pair of utterly reddened eyes. Una was frightened, but then she summoned her courage and said strongly, Crompton, what do you think you are doing? This is the Fiend Castle. Una knew that Crompton was a fairly powerful fiend who was at a high god level of power. Crompton. Instantly, some other fiends walked over and rebuked him, stop making trouble. These fiends whom Crompton had called over were all Crompton's friends. Humph! Crompton snorted coldly, but he also knew that in Royal Wing City, he couldn't commit acts of violence. All he could do was vent. Una, Crompton is just hot-tempered. Right, let's get a bottle of Olay. Hurry. A nearby man with long red hair handed the piece of azurite on the counter to Una, who accepted the chance to back down from this confrontation. Accepting the azurite, she withdrew a bottle of wine and handed it to them. At this time, the black-haired youth, Angie, said softly, Una, sorry. Una looked at him, shaking her head and smiling. I know my training speed. The black-haired youth looked at Una. It took me 100,000 years to master these 3 types of profound mysteries. In the next 100,000 years, there is no way my power will increase significantly. My remaining money is only enough to permit me to stay in Royal Wing City for a few more decades only. I don't have any more time. Una glanced at him. Fine. In the end, Una acquiesced. Might I ask, what are the requirements to apply to be a fiend? A voice rang out. Linley and the other 2 walked to the counter. Una glanced at him, and then immediately held her head in her hands. Good heavens! First we have this god who failed twice but was lucky enough to survive, yet still wants to take the trials again. That was already crazy enough. Don't tell me that we now have a demigod who wants to participate the fiend trials. Hey, my boss asked you a question. Bibi stared at her. Una looked at Bibi. She couldn't help but feel puzzled, saying in surprise, he is your boss. Una could tell that Bibi was a god, while Linley was only a demigod. What, something wrong with that? Bibi asked her in response. Una couldn't help but feel stunned. The nearby Delia laughed and continued, Miss Una, can you tell us what requirements there are for the fiend trials? Una said, the fiend trials application doesn't have any other requirements, as long as you pay 10,000 inkstones, you can participate in the trials. Once you pass, you will be a 1-star fiend. However, although there aren't any hard and fast rules for participating in the fiend trials, sir, I recommend you come participate after reaching the god level. The demigod level, it is too dangerous. Looking at Linley, Una could only laugh awkwardly. Una spoke the truth. Linley understood this, because he had heard their earlier conversation. 1,000 people participated in the trials, but only 53 had succeeded, while less than 100 had survived in total. This death rate was terrifying. In addition, those who participated should all have been at the god level. One could imagine how terrifyingly dangerous it was. Crompton had gone to another corner of the main hall with his friends to drink wine. He was currently still extremely angry. Mother **ing filthy whore. Crompton's heart was filled with rage, and he would occasionally glare at Una. Huh. Crompton suddenly paused. Brothers, look, that brown-haired youth is just a demigod, right? The others were startled as well, all taking a closer look. Hey, it really is a demigod. Those people were all astonished. You aren't planning to apply for the fiend trials now, are you? Una looked at Linley's group. No rush. In a while, I'll return. Linley said with a calm laugh. Linley now knew how dangerous the fiend trials were. Even if it was just for Delia and Bibi's sakes, he couldn't put himself in danger. In addition, he was more than halfway through gaining insights into the profound mysteries of the essence of the earth. Even if he only slowly completed the fusion process, it would only take a few dozen years. No rush. As Linley's group was preparing to leave, suddenly, a voice rang out. In a while? Haha, this sound was extremely ear-piercing. Linley turned and saw that the leader of a group walking over was that Crompton. Crompton snickered, a contemptuous look in his eyes as he looked at Linley. Haha, you, a demigod, want to take the fiend trials. Crompton's voice was extremely loud. The hundreds of people in the main hall all turned to look, and quite a few walked over. A demigod is taking the Fiend trials? Have I heard wrongly? Some people were puzzled as to what was going on. I've heard of demigods wanting to take the Fiend trials, but that was something from I don't know how many years ago. I've never personally witnessed it. A red-haired man, carrying a cup of wine, walked over. These people all turned to look at Linley. Is it him? The one who is taking the Fiend trials? They could tell that the only person present at the demigod level was Linley. Right, it's this little fellow. Crompton immediately laughed. Linley's face became exceedingly ugly to behold. Delia and Bibi were also enraged. Not just this little brown-haired kid. This black-haired kid. He failed twice in a row in the Fiend trials, but he was incredibly lucky and managed to survive. Now, he wants to try again. Crompton laughed. There are an extraordinary number of fools here today. Do they think that with their power, they can become fiends? What do they take fiends for? What a joke. The black-haired man was so angry, he clenched his hands into fists as he stared at Crompton. Linley's face was sunken as well. F***ck your mother, you bastard. Bibi bellowed, but Linley immediately grabbed Bibi. Bibi, don't be rash. Don't get angry with trash like this. It isn't worth it. Linley said. Linley knew that he couldn't let Bibi commit any acts of violence. If he committed any acts of violence in Royal Wing City, he would be finished. The face of Crompton, who had been laughing heartily, suddenly froze. He turned to look at Linley. Hey, Crompton, did you hear that? That demigod called you trash. Some people nearby fanned the flames. What did you say? Crompton's face was sinister. You want me to say it again? Linley had a look on his face, as though he didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. I really didn't expect that there were people in this world who wanted to be cursed out. Fine then, I'll say it again. I said that you, Linley's face grew cold as he stared at Crompton. Are trash. Let's go. Linley pulled Bibi and Delia by the hands, completely ignoring Crompton as he began heading for the outside. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 15, Royal Wing Fiend. Stop right there. An explosive shout. But Linley's group completely ignored him, continuing to move forward. There are overbearing jerks everywhere. It's best not to get involved with this sort of person. Delia used her divine sense to speak to Linley. I understand. Linley didn't want to keep getting involved with this Crompton either. He wanted to leave the Fiend Castle immediately. He wanted to leave, but the man wouldn't let him. Swish. Crompton's figure suddenly appeared in front of Linley, blocking Linley's path. Linley, Delia, and Bibi all had unpleasant looks on their faces. Especially Bibi. If it hadn't been for the fact that Linley had used their spiritual link to yell at him, Bibi would have exploded already. Crompton, they just called you trash. How come you aren't doing anything about it? The people nearby delighted in causing some chaos. While some spoke and laughed on one side, others mocked and satirized on the other, causing Crompton's face to become even uglier. These guys. Behind the counter, Una felt a hint of worry. The nearby fiends were either toying with their wine glasses or snickering to each other. They were all watching this like it was great sport. Crompton, within their circle of friends, actually had a rather low status. This was because Crompton had become a high god through fusing with a divine spark. Although he was a high god, as he had fused with a divine spark, he hadn't fused any of the profound mysteries, and so was the weakest type of high god possible. After all these years, he remained a mere 3-star fiend. Generally speaking, high gods were capable of becoming 4-star fiends. He was a 3-star fiend, and this alone made him a target of mockery. Crompton was weak in power, naturally he didn't dare to be arrogant in front of his friends. Thus, his long-suppressed anger would naturally occasionally be let loose and vented on some people weaker than him. Mocking the weak was something Crompton often did. "You called me trash." Crompton stared at Linley, his eyes faintly red. His breathing was harsh and ragged, as though he was an explosively angry bull. His own friends mocking him was one thing, but just because he said a few words, this demigod actually trash-talked him back. Of course Crompton was furious. "You, a demigod, a despicable little fellow, dare to insult me." Crompton was so furious, he wanted to attack, but as he thought of the prohibitions of Royal Wing City, he remembered how terrifying those penalties were. If he were to attack, the repercussions would be beyond his ability to tolerate. Enough. Suddenly, the long silver-haired fiend who had been seated in the distance said calmly, "Crompton, forget it. You acted incorrectly as well. Stop obsessing over this matter." "Me, incorrectly?" Crompton stared, pointing at Linley, then at the black-haired youth. "Look at the two of them. One is just a demigod, while the other, he failed the fiend trials twice, but was lucky enough to survive. This sort of spineless wimp still wants to try to take the fiend trial. You tell me, why can't I say a few things about them?" The black-haired youth, Angie, had been suppressing his anger this entire time. He had thought that Crompton would just say a word or two then stop. Who would have imagined that Crompton would continue non-stop, and even pointed at him while calling him a spineless wimp? "This is Royal Wing City. What have I to fear?" The black-haired youth ground his teeth. "Spineless wimp." The black-haired youth raised his head, staring at Crompton. "You called me a spineless wimp. If you aren't a spineless wimp, who is?" Crompton didn't give a damn about Angie, his eyes filled with disdain. The black-haired youth, Angie, growled in a voice that was somewhat shaking, "You call me a spineless wimp? Then I would like to ask you, if you failed the fiend trials twice and nearly died twice, would you have the courage to participate in a third fiend trial? Would you dare?" Crompton was stunned. Would he dare? He wouldn't dare. That isn't courage, that's idiocy. Crompton was very unhappy with the way this black-haired youth was looking at him. And this fellow, this idiot. He's a demigod, but he wants to take part in the fiend trials. Crompton turned to look at Linley again. "Bibi, Delia, let's go." Linley frowned, but he didn't want to continue wasting time with this sort of person. He knew that right now, Crompton had a belly full of anger, yet couldn't attack. All he could do was vent through his words. "My friends, just watch. I am willing to bet that if this guy takes part in the fiend trials, he will definitely die." Crompton continued to talk, while the friends next to him snorted, "Why bet? If a demigod takes part in the fiend trials, of course he will die. Everyone knows this. Boss, one day, I will make that damn baldy pay." Bibi said mentally. "Don't pay him any mind." Linley said calmly. Suddenly, Linley stared in shock towards the outside of the fiend castle. From the distant horizon, he saw several blurs flash through the sky towards the gates of the fiend castle, at a speed that was so fast that people would be astonished to even hear of it. The most important thing was, they dared to fly. Flying in Royal Wing City? How is it that they dare to do this? Linley was stunned. After having been in Royal Wing City for some time, they had seen many people in Royal Wing City and many high gods as well. However, no one dared to fly. Everyone walked on the ground. They might use some techniques to allow themselves to walk faster, but everyone still walked on the ground. The four figures who flew down to the gates of the castle entered the main hall of the Fiend Castle, one person walking in front, three people coming from behind. The leader had slightly curly, long golden hair. He wore a long, golden cloak. The strange thing was, his eyebrows were white, while his pupils were golden. White eyebrows, golden pupils. Just by standing there, he gave off a sort of fierce aura. After striding into the main hall of the Fiend Castle, the golden-haired middle-aged man swept everyone with his gaze. Everyone who his gaze fell across felt their souls shudder. An absolute expert. Crompton was facing Linley and Angie, so he naturally didn't notice the newcomer. He was still self-delightedly chattering, not just this brown-haired boy, that Angie as well. If they participate in the Fiend trials, they will definitely die. Many people in the Fiend Castle, however, had noticed the newcomers. Immediately, 10 of them, Una included, immediately bowed and said respectfully, "Lord Governor." "Lord Governor?" Hearing this, Linley and the other two were shocked as well. The laughing Crompton, hearing these words, was greatly shocked. He immediately turned. Seeing that white-eyebrowed, golden-pupiled man, he had no idea who this person was. But he had heard others call out Lord Governor. "My respects to the Lord Governor." Everyone who had understood immediately bowed. "My respects to the Lord Governor." Only now did Crompton understand as well, and he hurriedly bowed. At the same time, the eyes of these fiends were shining. They snuck glances out of the corner of their eyes at this middle-aged man with white eyebrows and golden pupils. Was this person the legendary governor of Royal Wing City? The pride of the entire Royal Wing City, the 7-star Fiend, Lord Royal Wing? Fiends were divided into 7 levels. The highest level 7-star Fiends were, without question, amongst the most powerful experts in all of the infernal realm. Every single 7-star Fiend had their own unique moniker. This one was the Royal Wing Fiend, his moniker was Royal Wing. The fame of the Fiend known as Royal Wing had long ago spread across the entire infernal realm. Perhaps he wasn't as famous as the likes of Bloodviolet and Silvermoon, who had become famous through slaughter, but in terms of power, as 7-star Fiends, there wasn't a big difference between them. 7-star Fiend. Angie looked excitedly at this person in front of him. He dreamed of one day also becoming an exalted 7-star Fiend. How terrifying. Definitely not any weaker than Blue Fire. When Linley saw Royal Wing, in his heart, for some reason, he had a feeling that he never had before, that a person could, just with a glance, cause his soul to shudder. Such power was utterly breathtaking. The white-eyebrowed, golden-pupiled Royal Wing glanced sideways at Crompton. "You said just now that others who participate in the Fiend trials would definitely die." Crompton's entire body was trembling. None of the surrounding fiends dared to make a sound. Crompton, terrified, hurriedly said, "Lord Governor, I was just saying that this brown-haired kid and that black-haired kid at the counter, if they participate, they will definitely die." As he said this, Crompton didn't have any conviction in his voice. "Oh? Why do you say that?" Royal Wing seemed to be intrigued. This brown-haired kid is just a demigod. If a demigod takes part in the Fiend trials, he will definitely die. Crompton had no idea that 7-star Fiends were so terrifying. Royal Wing's gaze alone was causing his heart to quaver. They were both high gods, but the difference between them was enormous. "Oh, a demigod is going to participate in the Fiend trials." Royal Wing nodded slightly. "And the other one?" "The black-haired kid has already tried twice in a row to take the Fiend trials, but failed both times. He was lucky enough to preserve his life, but he wants to participate in the Fiend trials again," Crompton said, then no longer dared to make a sound. But Royal Wing only gave the black-haired kid, Angie, an approving glance. And then, he turned his gaze to Crompton. "What is your name?" "Crompton." Crompton stuttered. "You are a high god, but you became one through fusing with a divine spark." Royal Wing laughed calmly. "Yes." Crompton hurriedly nodded. Royal Wing continued, "If my senses are correct, you should only be a 3-star Fiend. From the surface, the medallions of all Fiends, be they 1-star or 7-star, were identical and generally couldn't be distinguished from one another. One could only tell the difference through using certain special appraisal methods. Royal Wing could tell at a single glance. This was indeed astonishing. Yes, I'm a 3-star fiend. Crompton nodded. A high god who is only a 3-star fiend. Low ranked. Royal Wing said calmly. Crompton felt incredibly ashamed. It was indeed very embarrassing for a high god to be a 3-star fiend. How could he not be ashamed, with Lord Royal Wing pointing it out? This black-haired kid has failed twice, but still doesn't give up. Although he's a bit rash, his spirit and vigor is quite admirable. If you were able to learn to have that sort of mindset, you would have reached the 4-star level long ago. Royal Wing said calmly. Crompton could only make a sound of acknowledgement. Even if Lord Royal Wing was to curse him out, all he would be able to do was accept it. Royal Wing then turned and walked towards Linley. Laughing calmly, he said, "You plan to participate in the Fiend trials." Linley hadn't expected that this Royal Wing could come speak to him. The man was a 7-star fiend, the governor of Royal Wing City. "I just came to take a look today. I plan to participate in the Fiend trials a few decades from now." Linley replied respectfully. "A few decades?" Royal Wing laughed calmly, then said, "Young fellow, it isn't a shameful thing for a demigod to want to participate in the Fiend trials. In the past, when I was a demigod, I participated in the Fiend trials myself." Many of the nearby fiends immediately perked up and began to listen carefully. They had never heard that Lord Royal Wing had done such a thing. However, Royal Wing City had been built countless years ago. One could imagine how long Royal Wing had been training for. Surprised, Linley raised his head to glance towards Royal Wing. "But of course, I failed. Fortunately, I was able to stay alive, and then after I reached the god level, I tried the Fiend trials again." Royal Wing said with a calm laugh. "Young fellow, it's best if you wait to reach the god level first before taking part in the Fiend trials. The Fiend trials are at the difficulty of a 1-star mission. Generally speaking, even full gods have to expend a tremendous amount of effort to complete such missions. A demigod, the chances of completing such a mission is too low, too low." Linley felt gratitude in his heart for this Lord Royal Wing who stood in front of him. At least he was giving him advice. Lord Royal Wing, despite possessing a noble, lofty status, was smiling and gently remonstrating with him. How could Linley not feel grateful? Royal Wing then took a long look at Linley before turning and leading his 3 subordinates towards the stairs. After Lord Royal Wing left, the entire main hall of the Fiend Castle exploded into a hubbub of noise. All of the fiends were incredibly excited. That was Lord Royal Wing, the expert I worship. Many fiends were extremely excited as they discussed Lord Royal Wing. They no longer discussed Linley and Angie. After all, Linley and Angie were small matters to begin with. At the top of the Fiend Castle. Today was truly intriguing. That brown-haired kid actually had a hint of the aura of the 4 Divine Beast clans about him. Royal Wing sighed. The 4 Divine Beast clans. "Milord, don't they come from the Indigo Prefecture of the Blood Ridge continent? How is it that they have appeared in our place?" one of Royal Wing's 3 subordinates said. Royal Wing laughed calmly. "The 4 Divine Beast clans are a very widespread clan. Their descendants are extremely numerous. It isn't a big deal for one of their members to appear here." Royal Wing only felt somewhat intrigued. After all, a mere descendant of the 4 Divine Beast clans wasn't worthy of his actual concern. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 16, The Full God Level. Linley's group of 3 left the Fiend Castle, returning to their own residence. Humph. BB threw his grass hat onto the table, furiously saying, "I really have to hold my temper here in the infernal realm. That foul Baldy doesn't dare to offend powerful people, so he comes to mock us instead. If we were outside the city, even if it cost me my life, I'd take him on." Delia pursed her lips with a laugh. "Take him on? "Bibi, that Baldy is a high god. Will you be able to take him on?" "So what if he's a high god?" Bibi raised his head, but then he lowered his head again. "Oh, a high god." Seeing Bibi act this way, Linley and Delia both began to laugh. "Grandpa, ugh. He has high god sparks, but he forbade me from using them. He wants me to break through on my own. Otherwise, I would have become a high god long ago." Bibi looked towards Linley. "Enough about this. Boss, when we will take the Fiend trials?" "A few decades in the future." Linley nodded. "I'm not confident right now in my ability to pass the Fiend trials. No rush. In a few decades, I will definitely be able to reach the god level in the laws of the earth. By then, our chances of success will be significant." Linley couldn't help but think of his elemental laws of the wind. Linley had never dared to slack off in his training of the elemental laws of the wind. However, up till now, Linley still had only a partial understanding of the fast and slow profound mysteries. "I've mastered the throbbing pulse of the world long ago, and the essence of the earth is one of the simplest profound mysteries of the laws of the earth. Naturally, the speed of fusing them is rather fast. But the profound truths of velocity requires me to simultaneously gain insights into these two different profound mysteries while fusing them. The speed is much slower." Linley sighed to himself. If he himself was able to reach the god level in both the laws of the wind and the laws of the earth, his power would naturally increase greatly. Just a few decades. No rush. Bibi chortled. "There's no danger in Royal Wing City anyhow, and it is so huge. I have plenty of places to stroll about now." "Oh, right. Boss. In the Black Dragon tribe, I often heard people praise the delicacies of Royal Wing City. Shall we go for a taste tomorrow?" With regards to delicacies, Linley was somewhat eager as well. The delicacies of the infernal realm were made using extremely precious ingredients and by genuine maestros. The quality naturally was high. "Fine. We'll go for a taste tomorrow." An occasional splurge was necessary. Royal Wing City. At the doorway to a restaurant. "This place is pretty good." Linley's group looked at the exterior decorations of this restaurant. Satisfied, they pushed the door open and went in. When Linley's group entered, immediately the waiters of the hotel came in. Bibi glanced at the waiter, then used his divine sense to speak to Linley. "Boss, this waiter is a god." In his heart, Linley felt this was ridiculous. A god, waiting on him? But in Royal Wing City, gods were indeed commonly seen. It wasn't too absurd for a waiter to be a god. "Our 3 guests, please follow me." The waiter had a smile on his face as he led Linley's group forward. Drip, drip. The restaurant had a miniature artificial mountain and spring waters. The spring water gurgled forward, its flows separating the restaurant into multiple areas. Linley's group was taken to one part of the restaurant, where they sat down. With a flip of his hand, the waiter retrieved a menu containing a list of delicacies. Smiling, he put it on the table. "After you have ordered your dishes, please just call for me." After speaking, the waiter retreated to another corner. "I've never seen the prices of dishes in the infernal realm before." Bibi excitedly flipped open the menu. Linley was somewhat curious as well. "Wow, it really is expensive." Bibi continuously flipped through the pages of the menu. "Boss, the cheapest dish I've found still costs 20 inkstones." As he spoke, Bibi stared with wide eyes, still reading the menu. The introductions to each dish are quite detailed. It clearly explains the uniqueness of every single dish. "Oh, this dish actually costs 700 inkstones. So expensive." After reading it all, Bibi handed it over to Linley and Delia, a mocking smile on his face. Linley and Delia began to read the menu together and the dishes within. "Hey, Linley, look. This dish is made from the liver of a hellfire phoenix. It costs 30 inkstones. The price isn't too extravagant. Delia pointed at a dish. Linley flipped through the menu as well, and he couldn't help but sigh. As long as you have money, you can eat any sort of saint-level magical beast or even deity-level magical beasts, even those from other planes. Linley, seeing the detailed descriptions of each dish, couldn't help but sigh. Delia, you and Bibi pick. I'll eat whatever. They ended up ordering 6 dishes. Bibi, you only picked the expensive ones. Linley began to laugh. The 6 dishes came to a total price of 215 inkstones. It must be understood that in the infernal realm, a demigod artifact was worth less than 10 inkstones, while a demigod spark was less than 100 inkstones. But these 6 dishes alone cost a total of 215 inkstones. Fortunately, the total net worth of the 3 of them was in excess of several million, so they naturally wouldn't care too much about this sum. These 2 dishes will definitely take a bit longer, especially this one. The slow roasting alone will take 6 hours. The waiter smiled as he explained. Understood. Linley nodded. When ordering food, there were explanations beneath each of the dishes. After all, Linley's group wasn't in a rush. They could sit there and wait an entire day if necessary. Boss, life for people with money in the infernal realm is pretty good. Bibi sighed. When we were back in our homeland, how could we possibly eat food like this? Bibi currently felt that he was in a state of bliss. He loved to eat. Linley looked outside the window. The metallic window of the restaurant was translucent. One could see everything going on outside. These cities are the only safe zones in the entire infernal realm. Linley said to himself. In Royal Wing City, we can relax and sit here quietly while enjoying fine food. But if we were outside the city, every moment would be dangerous, and perhaps we might lose our lives. The enormous Nightblaze prefecture stretched to a circumference of 1 billion kilometers. But there were only 10 cities. One could tell from this that in the infernal zone, almost all the experts lived a life of near constant danger. Only an extremely small number were able to live lives of comfort. Even if you want to live a comfortable life, you still need an enormous sum of money to accomplish it. Linley understood that while Royal Wing City was very comfortable, the amount of money they were spending was astonishing as well. The dishes came, and Linley's group began to enjoy these wondrous delicacies. As Bibi ate, his eyes began to grow lidded in enjoyment. Delia and Linley also had the feeling that eating these delicacies was indeed a sort of absolute enjoyment. "Whew," Bibi said with a sour look on his face, "Boss. After eating this food, in the future, I won't be able to swallow the food of our homeland. Man, this is simply too delicious. This is absolutely one of the best ways one can enjoy oneself." Bibi continued to eat as he spoke, while praising the food non-stop. Linley couldn't help but laugh. "Linley." Delia nudged Linley gently. "Huh?" Puzzled, Linley looked over. Delia said softly, "Linley, look outside the window." Linley immediately looked outside the window. He saw many people clustered outside on the streets, amongst which included some who were looking into the restaurant with a hint of envy in their eyes. This is very normal. There are many people there who just entered Royal Wing City. Linley said softly. "Delia, this is much like how, when we first arrived at Royal Wing City and saw these places for the first time, we also looked everywhere with curiosity and anticipation, right? The infernal realm was a very brutal place. If you had money, you could enjoy all sorts of delicacies. But in the infernal realm, most people were struggling to survive. But of course, the worst off were the saints. Many saints had come from material planes to the infernal realm, but only after they arrived did they discover that they were the lowest rungs in this place. Their lives could be taken from them at any moment. What they wanted was to acquire a demigod spark. But a demigod spark wasn't even as costly as the table of food in front of Linley. Big brother, congratulations on becoming a fiend. Today, the two of us have to have a good celebration. From behind Linley, a voice rang out. Upon hearing the word fiend, Linley's couldn't help but listen carefully. Haha, this time it was really dangerous. Fortunately, I'm skilled in the elemental laws of the wind. The thick, deep voice rang out. Only, several of my dear friends failed. Alas, before this, we were saying that we would all succeed and all celebrate together. As the man spoke, his voice lowered. Upon hearing this, the mood at Linley's table dropped as well. The fiend trials were very brutal. Delia, in the next few decades, you need to focus on training in the elemental laws of the wind. When the time comes, if anything dangerous appears, at least you'll have a better chance of staying alive. Linley was worried about Delia. Once he became a god, the weakest of the three would be Delia. Right. Delia nodded gently. As for Bibi's power, Linley actually felt rather confident in his heart. Fortunately, Delia has learned the profound mysteries involving the doppelgangers. Nyef, who had tried to assassinate Linley, utilized the doppelganger technique. Time flowed on. Linley, Delia, and Bibi lived a quiet life in Royal Wing City. In the blink of an eye, 32 years passed. Linley's training had reached the final step long ago, and he was about to break through and reach mastery at any moment. Within the inner courtyard, Bibi was wearing his straw hat, a sour look on his face as he mumbled, "Boss said he reached a bottleneck 2 years ago, and he's been in closed-door training ever since, not coming out. It has been 2 years, didn't he say that the profound mysteries of the essence of the earth is the simplest profound mystery of the laws of the earth? But he hasn't broken through after spending 2 years. It actually wasn't too hard to gain insights into the profound mysteries of the essence of the earth. But what Linley was doing was simultaneously gaining insights into the essence of the earth while fusing it with another profound mystery. Boss being in training is one thing, but Delia is by his side training as well. I'm bored to death." Bibi once again let out a long sigh. With a flip of his hand, Bibi retrieved a god spark, then tossed it into his mouth and swallowed it. As for Grandpa Beirut, ugh. He gave me a whole sack full of divine sparks and told me to eat them all. But digesting these divine sparks is so slow. Bibi let out another sigh. So many divine sparks. How many years will it take me to eat them all? Right, once boss is out of money, I'll sell some of them off, Bibi mumbled to himself. But suddenly, rumble. A surge of unique energy ripples appeared, as the natural laws descended upon the room where Linley was living in. This happened very commonly in the infernal realm, so nobody paid any attention. But this was a huge source of joy for Bibi. Boss finally broke through. Bibi rejoiced as he charged towards Linley's room. Creak. Bibi pushed the door open. Delia, within the room, saw Bibi and immediately used her eyes to tell Bibi not to make any sound. Bibi hurriedly nodded. Holding his breath, he raised his head to look at Linley, who was enfolded by the unique natural laws and hovering in mid-air already. Linley's eyes were shut. Suddenly, Linley's Earth-type demigod spark seemed to have become immaterial. It came out from Linley's forehead, then floated about Linley's head. A large amount of Earth elemental essence swirled around that divine spark. Under the control of the natural laws, Linley's divine spark slowly began to transform. Transform from a demigod spark to a god spark. The Earth elemental essences disappeared, and that divine spark which emanated an earthen light clearly had a much more powerful aura now. Rumble. The earthen yellow divine spark slowly revolved, then re-entered Linley's body. Moments later. The natural laws have vanished. Why hasn't the boss opened his eyes yet? What's he doing? Bibi was somewhat unable to wait any longer. He couldn't help but speak. Delia just stared at him, then said through her divine sense, Bibi, don't make any sound. Linley, hearing Bibi's words, opened his eyes and laughed as he looked at Bibi. I just reached the god level, so I wanted to sense what about myself has changed, that's all. At this moment, Linley had already completely fused the throbbing pulse of the world and the essence of the earth, entering the full god level. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 17, Profound Mysteries Fused, Power Greatly Strengthened. When breaking through from the demigod level to the god level, the descent of the natural laws which surrounded my soul lasted only a short while, but the transformation of my soul was comparable in effect to me absorbing those 11 amethysts. Linley was absolutely amazed. Over the past 32 years, those 11 amethysts that he had purchased had been completely absorbed long ago. Linley's spirit was now incomparably more powerful than it had been in the past. After becoming a god and having his soul transformed yet again, the effect was actually superior to absorbing soul essences. Delia, have you finished absorbing those 2 golden soul pearls? Linley looked at Delia. Linley had Delia go buy 2 golden soul pearls to strengthen her soul as well. That way, she would find it easier to resist the soul attacks of others. That time, Delia hadn't just purchased 2 golden soul pearls, she had also purchased an amethyst. I've completely absorbed the golden soul pearls, but absorbing that amethyst truly is slow. Delia sighed. No wonder there are so many who are willing to buy golden soul pearls but so few who buy amethysts. Boss, when are we going to the Fiend trials? Bibi urged frantically. Bibi had been waiting for this day for a long time. When? Linley looked at the sky, then laughed. No rush. It isn't even noon yet. Let's go have a meal at a restaurant to celebrate. After eating, we can go to the Fiend Castle. Restaurant. Bibi's eyes lit up. After Linley's group finished and left the restaurant, it was already near nightfall. However, the Fiend Castle was open at night as well. Linley's group immediately went to the Fiend Castle. Upon reaching the Fiend Castle, they saw that there were actually quite a few people here at the Fiend Castle. They strode into the first floor's main hall of the Fiend Castle. A familiar face. Linley immediately saw Yuna behind the counter, and the 3 of them walked over. Miss Yuna, I want to participate in the Fiend trials. Linley said. Yuna lifted her head up to look at them, and then her eyes suddenly widened as she started to laugh. It is you 3. Linley had left a very deep impression in Yuna. After all, on that day, even the Lord Governor, Lord Royalwing, had made an appearance. Yuna naturally remembered that day very clearly. Oh, you reached the god level. Yuna glanced at Linley in surprise. Were you already at the verge of a breakthrough, the last time you came? Yuna laughed. She wasn't too surprised. As she saw it, last time Linley should have been stuck at the bottleneck for demigods. From the demigod level to the god level, a breakthrough could be very fast or very slow. Linley only chuckled. Help the 3 of us register for the Fiend trials, please. Yuna looked at Linley's group then nodded. Fine. You know the rules. 10,000 inkstones per person. 30,000 for 3. Yuna laughed as she stretched her hand out, and with a flip of his hand, Linley retrieved 3 of those long azaites. Accepting the 3 long azaites, Yuna withdrew 3 medallions with a devilish cyclopean eye design, handing them to Linley's group. What are these? Bibi looked curiously at the image as he asked. This is the proof that you are qualified to participate in the Fiend trials. Yuna laughed. Right, tell me where you are living. I'll record it down. Miss Yuna, you haven't even told us what the mission is. Why do you want our address? Linley didn't understand. Yuna shook her head. The mission for a Fiend trial will only be explained clearly when you actually participate in it. Right now, nobody knows. Even the exact time of the Fiend trial is uncertain. This is because generally speaking, only when the numbers are filled up will a Fiend trial begin. Fill up the numbers. Linley began to understand. Only when the number of participants reached a certain number would a Fiend trial begin. They couldn't be certain of who would come to register, so naturally, there was no way to ascertain the exact time the trials would start. Still have to wait? We won't wait another few decades, will we? BB said hurriedly. Of course not. Actually, just 2 days ago, a group of people went to take the Fiend trials. Only, the results were as cruel as ever. Less than 100 succeeded. Too many died. Yuna let out a sigh. Oh. Don't be in a hurry. Roughly in about a month or so, the numbers will be filled up. 1 month. Linley's group was in no rush. After the numbers are filled up for the Fiend trials and the mission has been selected, the employees of the Fiend Castle will notify you at your residence. Thus, you need to leave behind your address. Yuna laughed. Linley's group understood. They immediately recorded their address. Hey, beautiful Miss Yuna. BB chortled. I'd like to ask, last time, that fellow named Angie, who failed twice in a row but still wanted to participate in a third Fiend trial. Did he succeed or fail in the last Fiend trial? BB's question caused Linley and Delia to look at Yuna as well. Angie. Yuna began to laugh. His luck really is not bad at all. He succeeded on the third Fiend trial. After succeeding, he accepted a long-distance escort mission out of Royal Wing City. Most likely, he has long since left the boundaries of Nightblaze Prefecture. But of course, it's also possible that he might have encountered danger during the escort mission and perished. Who knows? Linley's group rejoiced for Angie. No matter what, in the end, that stubborn fellow had finally succeeded. Linley's group thus began to wait calmly. In the end, they waited more than 20 days. Royal Wing City. That quiet little courtyard where Linley's group was staying. The blood-red sun shone down upon the courtyard. Linley was seated meditatively at the floor of the courtyard, a layer of earthen light roiling about on his body. Boss's defensive power has far outstripped that of a god-level defensive artifact, and it's continuing to grow stronger. BB sat there on the chair, clutching a bottle of fruit wine in his hands, continuously drinking. This type of fruit wine is the fairly cheap sort in the infernal realm. A single inkstone can buy 10 bottles. While drinking it is far better than those fruit wines which are acclaimed so highly in the Yulon continent. BB wasn't like Linley. Linley spent most of his time and effort in training, while BB spent most of his time eating and playing about, only occasionally training. The roiling earthen yellow light on Linley's body stopped flowing about, transforming into an earthen yellow outfit. Earth-style magic included the Sacred Earth Guard armor spell. The Sacred Earth Guard armor, upon reaching the deity level, could form armor on the level of adamantine, just by using powerful spiritual energy as well as divine power. But this sort of Sacred Earth Guard armor was the simplest, most primitive sort. Linley, after mastering the essence of the earth, was capable of forming an elemental armor over his body. The power of this elemental armor was far greater than that of adamantine armor. This elemental armor's defensive power was comparable to ordinary god-level defensive artifacts. But due to his mastery of the throbbing pulse of the world, Linley also had the pulse guard defense, which was slightly more defensively formidable than even the elemental armor. Fortunately, Linley had managed to fuse the essence of the earth and the throbbing pulse of the world together. Thus, after constant training and improvement, Linley had finally succeeded in being able to combine the constantly flowing, throbbing pulse guard defense with the static, immobile earth elemental armor. The earthen set of clothes which Linley was wearing was in reality his pulse guard armor. If one magnified it 100-fold, one would discover this. The extremely thin, minute strands of earthen yellow divine power were crisscrossed into a rippling lattice, moving in accordance to a particular rhythm to form a perfect whole. The countless rippling lattices of divine power in the end formed the set of clothes which Linley was wearing. This pulse guard armor was the combination of his pulse guard defense and his elemental armor. In terms of defensive power, it was nearly 10 times greater than that of most god-level defensive artifacts. This is the power of fusing profound mysteries. Linley felt a surge of delight. If I hadn't fused them, even though I have mastered both the throbbing pulse of the world and the essence of the earth, the defensive power would be much lower. Linley finally began to understand why there could be such an enormous gap in power between high gods. I have only fused 2 types of profound mysteries, but the power has multiplied tenfold. If I fused 3, 4. Linley sighed unceasingly. No wonder that Crompton, who became a deity through fusing with a divine spark, was so terrified in front of the Lord Governor. Indeed. After fusing the profound mysteries of Allah, the power expanded exponentially. I mastered the throbbing pulse of the world, then developed the Void Wave Sword. But now, with 2 profound mysteries completely fused, the power of my Void Wave Sword has also increased tenfold. Not just that, if I primarily use my spiritual energy, then the attack is a spiritual attack. But if I use my divine power as the basis of the attack, then it will be a material attack. The essence of the earth was normally used for material attacks. The throbbing pulse of the world was normally used for spiritual attacks. With the 2 profound mysteries fused, the Void Wave Sword didn't just grow more powerful in spiritual attacks, even the material attack components through his essence of the earth had increased greatly. Knock. Knock. Suddenly, a knocking sound could be heard. I'll go open the door. Bibi leapt to the doorway. Linley and Delia both walked over to the door as well. There was a black-haired youth outside. The 3 of you are participating in the Fiend trials, right? Have you come to alert us? Bibi said in delight. The black-haired youth nodded and laughed. Right. The 3 of you, let me see your Fiend emblems. Don't worry, this is the only way I have to ascertain your identities. Linley and the other 2 each withdrew their Fiend emblems with a flip of their hands. Right. Tomorrow morning at dawn, go to the gates of Royal Wing City and take part in the Fiend trials. You will find members of our Fiend Castle waiting for you there. The black-haired youth laughed as he spoke. Tomorrow at dawn. Linley's group was filled with anticipation. What's the Fiend trial going to be? Delia asked. The black-haired youth shook his head. I don't know. However, they will only tell you the details regarding your Fiend trial missions when you go to the meeting point. When the time comes and you go to the city gates, the people of the Fiend Castle probably won't recognize you. You only have to show off your Fiend emblems. The black-haired youth said, then he left. Linley's group exchanged glances. Wow. Boss, we're about to become fiends. Bibi was very excited. Fiend trials. Linley had already made up his mind. No matter what, protecting Delia and Bibi was what was important. Perhaps Bibi actually doesn't need my protection. Linley glanced at Bibi. The next dawn, Linley's group headed to the city gates very early. When Linley's group arrived at the city gates, they discovered a large metallic life-form hovering outside, which had the Fiend insignia atop it. It seems there's quite a few people. Linley looked through the translucent windows of the metallic life-form and was able to see quite a few figures within. Linley's group immediately flew over towards the metallic life-form, where a silver-haired elder was standing at the entrance. He looked towards Linley's group. Are you here for the Fiend trials? Linley nodded. Please show your Fiend emblems. The silver-haired elder didn't have any hint of a smile on his face. Seeing the Fiend emblems in the hands of Linley and the other 2, the silver-haired elder nodded slightly. Go in. Inside the metallic creature, there was a long corridor which was divided into 2 directions. There were people in the corridor. Upon seeing Linley's group, they called out, Fiend trial participants, enter the rear cabin. They entered the rear cabin. So many people. Linley couldn't help but be shocked. Boss, there are at least several hundred people here. Bibi said in amazement. Delia sighed as well, and not everyone is here yet. Linley, let's sit towards the sides. As they spoke, Linley's group found seats and sat down. In the rear cabin, each row had 21 seats, with each row divided up by 4 walkways. Bibi looked through the translucent window towards the outside. Right now, it seems there are quite a few people still coming. Hey, boss, look, there are people coming who are wearing Fiend medallions. And quite a few of them. Why are a group of fiends coming? Linley looked as well. But when he did, Linley's face changed. He saw a familiar face. Bibi was shocked as well. Boss, that foul Baldy is here as well. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 18, Moon Lake. Linley, that bald guy named Crompton is here as well. Delia also noticed that familiar figure. Linley could clearly see Crompton and the other fiends enter the metallic creature. Only, the fiends went into the front cabin of the metallic life form. All the participants in the fiend trials are in the rear cabin, while the fiends are in the front cabin. Linley was slightly relieved, but despite that, he still felt concern. Why are these fiends getting involved? Linley didn't care about fiends getting involved. What he cared about was that the fiends traveling along with them included Crompton. Linley had to admit that he disliked this Crompton. And Crompton, in turn, definitely would take advantage of any opportunity he had to kill Linley to vent his anger. If Crompton really were to go all out to kill us, the 3 of us do have a slight chance. Crompton only became a high god through fusing with a divine spark. He was the weakest type of high god. Those who fused with divine sparks wouldn't have their souls be ensconced by the natural laws, nor be nourished and strengthened. Their souls would thus be somewhat weaker. And Linley, while only a god, had fused 2 profound mysteries, the throbbing pulse of the world and the essence of the earth. His soul attack was 10 times stronger than that of a normal god. Linley's soul attack was more than enough to threaten Crompton's life. However, Linley wasn't completely confident either. After all, the opponent was a high god, meaning he had mastered all of the profound mysteries of an elemental law. Even if he hadn't fused any of them, he couldn't be underestimated. In dealing with Crompton, if Bibi and I were to go all out, we still have a chance. But, Crompton isn't alone. He has friends. Linley frowned. This was what caused Linley the most worry. We aren't in a city right now. We're outside the city. There are no prohibitions against combat. Once Crompton notices us, he might come for revenge. Linley thought back and forth, but he still couldn't come to a decision on what to do. Mother ***, there are so many fiends. Why do I have to be so unlucky as to have that Baldy be on this mission? Linley couldn't help but mentally curse. But although he was angry, he had to face reality. No matter what, all I can do right now is to hope that the Baldy won't notice us. Linley quietly hoped. This wasn't impossible. After all, Linley's group was in the rear cabin, while Crompton was in the front cabin. As long as they didn't run into each other, there wouldn't be any problems. Linley. Delia looked at him, her eyes also holding a hint of worry. Don't worry. Linley said softly. Bibi looked at Linley as well. Although Bibi liked to cause trouble, he wasn't a fool. He knew that with the Baldy mixed into this group, things had just potentially become disastrous. Bibi immediately said mentally, "Boss, if we really run into trouble, I'll deal with the Baldy. Although I won't be able to beat him, I am confident that I'll be able to tie him up for a time while staying alive." Linley glanced at Bibi with some surprise. Bibi had only reached the god level a few decades ago, but he was confident in being able to tie up a high god for a time. Even though this one had fused with a divine spark. Truly. Linley's eyes held a hint of laughter in them. Humph. Bibi raised his head proudly, then said using his divine sense, "Boss, I'm the second god Rat to ever exist in the countless planes of the universe. Don't underestimate me. Bibi was capable of easily eating divine sparks. How could he not have some special abilities? The metallic creature began to move. Whoosh! The enormous black shadow slashed through the air, disappearing from above Royal Wing City and becoming a faint speck in the distant horizons. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was completely gone. Within the metallic life form, the people all looked towards the outside. What's going on? Up till now, we still don't know what the mission is. Bibi muttered. Don't be impatient. Linley laughed calmly. A woman seated next to Linley with short silver hair spoke out. The Fiend trial mission has a set location. It must be very far away from Royal Wing City. Most likely, this journey will be a very long one. The people of Fiend Castle naturally aren't in a hurry to tell us about the Fiend trial just yet. Linley nodded to himself. My name is Linley. Linley laughed as he greeted the silver-haired woman. This silver-haired woman was wearing a silver outfit as well. She looked very clean and sharp. She glanced at him, a hint of a smile at the corner of her lips. My name is Regina Ruijin N.A. Mr. Linley, those two next to you are traveling with you, right? Regina knew very well that during a Fiend trial, several people joining forces together would have a much higher chance of success. If she were to encounter danger amidst the trials, if someone helped her out slightly, that might change her fate. So she wanted to get on good terms with Linley's group. Right. Linley laughed and nodded. The nearby Bibi's eyes lit up, and he turned to look in this direction. Miss Regina, your eyes are so enchanting. Ah, I forgot to introduce myself. You can call me Bibi. Regina looked at Bibi, and his lively, playful eyes instantly captivated her. Bibi. Your eyes are even more bewitching. Bibi's smile immediately became even brighter. Miss Regina, do you know why those fiends are traveling along with us? Linley gave voice to his confusion. This is a fiend trial. Those people are already fiends, but they are coming along as well. Regina shook her head. I'm not sure about this either. Linley could only once more bury his suspicions deep in his heart. The metallic life form flew for an entire day. At nightfall, the staff of the Fiend Castle finally came to the rear cabin. The Fiend Castle staff members are here, Regina said. Linley's group immediately sat up straight. They raised their heads, staring towards the three figures standing at the very front of the cabin. These three were staff members sent over by the Fiend Castle, with the leader being that silver-haired old man. Everyone. The silver-haired old man had a smile on his face. He said in a clear voice, there are, in total, 1,000 people taking part in this Fiend trial. I imagine everyone knows this already. The Fiend trial is extremely dangerous, and the death rate is extremely high. But everyone has come despite that, so in terms of courage, at least, you are all worthy of becoming fiends. The silver-haired old man's face grew solemn. But courage alone is insufficient. You also need power. This Fiend trial will take place in a place located roughly 30 million miles away from Royal Wing City. This place is known as the Moon Lake. Given the flying speed of the metallic life form, I expect it will take roughly a month before we reach our destination. The silver-haired elder said. At this moment, the rear cabin of the metallic life form was completely silent. 1,000 Fiend trial participants were all listening closely. There is something important which has to be made clear. The Fiend trial mission isn't something which is designed or set up by the Fiend Castle. The silver-haired elder's voice echoed in the rear cabin. Everyone who knows anything about fiends should know that fiends can accept missions at the Fiend Castle. Missions are divided into different levels. As for your trial, it was selected from the many available missions, a 1-star mission which is suitable for you. The silver-haired elder said solemnly, as long as you can complete this mission, you will thus become a 1-star fiend. As for the details of the mission, Lauren Lowlin, you tell them. The silver-haired elder stood off to one side while Lauren, a bewitchingly beautiful woman dressed in a long black cloak, stepped forward. Lauren's voice was clear and bright. The location of the mission is Moon Lake. Above Moon Lake, there is an ancient castle. The master of this ancient castle is extremely, terrifyingly powerful. He has one steward, 18 black-robed guards, and hundreds of gold-robed guards. Your mission is to kill one of the gold-robed guards. Remember, after killing the gold-robed guards, take their interspatial ring, that moon ring, and bring it back to the Fiend castle. Only the possession of this moon ring will be accepted as proof that you completed the mission. But of course, you can take out and make use of the wealth and items contained within the moon rings. Lauren laughed as she spoke. That's all. I'm done speaking. Immediately, a hubbub arose in the rear cabin, as everyone began to discuss this. Quiet. The silver-haired elder's voice rang out. Everyone's voices lowered. If you have any questions, speak. The silver-haired elder said. Immediately, a powerfully built blue-robed man who was 3 meters tall stood up. In a sonorous voice, he said, "Milord, you say that the proof of completing this mission is the moon ring. Can it be that every gold-robed guard has one? According to our intelligence reports, all of them should have one. Even if their interspatial rings aren't actually moon rings, the moon rings should be stored within their interspatial rings." The silver-robed elder laughed calmly. "But of course, we can't rule out special circumstances. Therefore, if you kill a gold-robed guard but can't find a moon ring, that's bad luck for you. Without a moon ring, you won't be acknowledged by the Fiend castle." The silver-haired elder pursed his lips. However, it should be very rare for a gold-robed guard to not have a moon ring. The man sat back down. The silver-haired woman by Linley's side, Regina, stood up. "Milord. You said that the lord of that castle is very powerful, and that he has a steward and black-robed guards. You only want us to kill the gold-robed guards. Would the black-robed guards and the lord of the castle really just let us do as we please?" Linley had a sudden thought. Not just Linley. Many of the other people who had come on this Fiend trial with them had also guessed what the answer was. On this trip to Moon Lake, others are going as well. There are also some 3- and 4-star Fiends, and even a 5-star Fiend squad. The silver-robed elder laughed calmly. "Most likely, when you get off the metallic creature, the group of Fiends will arrive as well." As I thought. Linley was very certain about this response. The silver-haired elder continued, "Their mission is to deal with the black-robed guards, the steward, and the lord of the castle." From what the Fiend castle staff member had explained, Linley and the others could guess that the gold-robed guards should be at the god level of power, while the black-robed guards, the steward, and the lord of the castle were all high gods. They spent 32 days in that metallic creature. Finally, they arrived at the destination. After you disembark, all you have to do is head south a few kilometers. Moon Lake is there. The silver-haired elder said loudly in the rear cabin, "This place isn't Royal Wing City. Life and death battles can happen at any moment. Everyone needs to be careful. We will quietly wait here for you return. If you successfully return with a moon ring, you can return to the metallic life form." Everyone maintained their silence. They all felt tremendous pressure. 1,000 people had come to take part in the Fiend trials. But how many of them would survive to return? The number of people who had come to take part in the Fiend trials was testament to how dangerous Fiend trials were. Since the Fiend castle had specially picked out this mission to test them, the difficulty level definitely wouldn't be low. Everyone in the front cabins has disembarked. Now all of you need to disembark. The silver-haired elder said calmly. "Let me give you one parting advice, you don't need to just be on guard against the dwellers of Moon Lake. You also need to be on guard against the other Fiend trial participants. There are always many who don't die during the mission, but are killed by other Fiend trial participants. I've seen this far too many times. Linley's heart shook slightly. Indeed. If someone else didn't have a moon ring but you did, the other person might ambush you so as to kill you and seize your moon ring. This was very common. After all, this wasn't Royal Wing City. Let's go. Linley, Delia, and Bibi followed the flow of people outside, the densely packed group slowly disembarking the metallic life form. At this moment, the metallic life form was on a broad, empty land. There were 23 fiends gathered there. Amongst them, the bald Crompton was standing in front of his friends, glancing about casually. But then, his gaze suddenly turned. HRM. Crompton stared at the entrance to the metallic creature. And then, Crompton's face immediately had a hint of a smile appear on it. I didn't expect that the three of them would also be assigned to this Fiend trial. What a coincidence. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 19, The Pink Mist. Linley didn't want to come face to face with Crompton, but no matter what, the three of them would have to exit the metallic creature. This was unavoidable. As soon as Linley's group exited through the opening, Crompton accidentally saw them. Linley cautiously looked at Crompton out of the corner of his eyes as well. At this moment, Linley was at the opening, while Crompton was currently standing amidst a tall patch of wild grass, but at that moment, their gazes crossed and locked. Not good. Linley's face instantly changed. Linley's face was now ugly to behold, but Crompton's face had a hint of a smile on it. I won't get involved with that baldy for now. If he insists on making trouble, all I can do is go all out. Linley didn't have any other choice for now either. All he could do was enter the group with the rest of the Fiend trial participants. All of them flew down from the metallic life form, landing on the patch of land with exuberant plant growth. Hey, bro, look. Crompton nudged someone nearby, and then gestured with his eyes towards the front. It's that punk who made me lose face at Royal Wing City. Hey, it really is the three of them. The fiends next to Crompton also looked towards Linley, clearly surprised. One of them began to laugh. Crompton, your luck is quite good. It seems you'll have a chance to get revenge. Crompton let out a sinister laugh. I originally thought I wouldn't have a chance, but who would have imagined that he would be delivered right to me? Crompton naturally wouldn't give up this opportunity. Soon, the 1,000 participants of the Fiend trials had all finished disembarking. Linley's team was in the middle of this group. Linley. That Regina greeted Linley's group, but they only casually acknowledged her, not paying any extra attention. Regina frowned. She couldn't help but feel puzzled, but how could she know that the three were currently worrying about Crompton? Boss, that Crompton is walking over. Bibi suddenly said. Linley looked over as well. Crompton was sneering coldly while walking over. Retreat. Linley and the other two immediately moved backwards. Seeing this, Crompton immediately snickered, "You want to flee?" Crompton's speed suddenly increased. No longer trying to disguise it, he charged straight towards Linley's group, his face ferocious. "When you were a demigod, you dared to curse at me." The rage in Crompton's heart, which had been suppressed for 30+ years, was now exploding forth. If it hadn't been for the fact that they were within Royal Wing City, he would have acted long ago. "Delia, you immediately retreat off to a distance while using your spatial wind to restrict him and slow his movements," Linley said through his divine sense. "Bibi, the two of us will prepare to fight." Linley's gaze turned cold. Since Crompton was coming for trouble, then it was time for them to go all out. Kill that foul baldy. Bibi's eyes had a vicious look flash through them as well. "Humph," Crompton sneered coldly, and then suddenly moved to pursue, while of Linley's group, Delia retreated at high speed, but Linley and Bibi did not, instead slowing down as though waiting for Crompton to come over. "What are you doing?" A cold shout shook in Crompton's mind. At the same time, a figure appeared in front of Crompton. Although Crompton's mind had been clouded by his fury, when he saw this person, he was immediately frightened into his senses. He immediately said respectfully, "Lord Loisius Loyishiusi, I. Huh." Linley's group came together once more, watching with confusion. A fiend had suddenly appeared in front of Crompton, blocking him. In front of this fiend, Crompton appeared to be extremely frightened. "Who is he?" Linley looked at the fiend in confusion. This fiend had long, brownish-black hair which was unbound casually, but his gaze was cold and fierce. "Crompton, you want to kill those three?" Loisius looked coldly at Crompton. Crompton wanted to speak, but he didn't know how he should explain. Loisius, a 5-star fiend. On this trip to Moon Lake, the leader of the fiends was this Loisius as well as his 2 partners. 5-star fiends, all 3 of them. This was an extremely powerful force amongst the fiends. "Humph, I don't care what you think you were doing," Loisius said coldly. "However, the battle has yet to begin. If because you killed these 3 gods, you created energy ripples that attracted the notice of the master of Moon Lake Castle, causing him to flee without engaging in battle, our mission would be a failure. If that happens, don't blame me for acting merciless." Yes, I understand." Crompton's heart shuddered. In his heart, he thought regretfully, "How could I have forgotten?" The energy ripples caused by battling deities were very apparent, especially if a high god was to fight against 3 gods, such a battle would definitely create energy ripples, and Moon Lake was only a few kilometers away from here. Once the battle began, the master of Moon Lake would definitely take notice. If the master of the castle fled, then this mission of Loisius and the other fiends would have failed. Loisius gave him a hard look, then left. Crompton immediately gave Linley's group a hard look as well. He said to himself, "Count yourselves lucky. However, when the battle begins, I will definitely kill the 3 of you to vent my anger. Right now, I'll just let you live a bit longer." After having been rebuked by Loisius, the anger which Crompton felt naturally was transferred towards Linley's group. "Everyone, we know that you are here to take part in the fiend trials." A voice rang out in the minds of all 1,000 test takers, Linley included. "We are different from you, our mission is to kill that master of Moon Lake Castle. Thus, I hope you won't be impatient. Wait for us to kill the master of Moon Lake Castle before making your moves." Linley and everyone else felt shocked. A divine sense which encapsulates everyone? It at least covers hundreds of meters. In the infernal realm, using divine sense to speak was very difficult. When Linley had been in the necropolis of the gods, as soon as he moved through the interdimensional gateway and into the necropolis of the gods, he had realized that his spiritual energy's maximum area had shrunk to just a few dozen meters, while in the Yulon continent, it had been over 1,000 kilometers. In the infernal realm, one of the higher planes, the restriction was even greater. When Linley had first arrived in the infernal realm, he was only a demigod. Although his soul was fairly powerful, his divine sense was still only able to encapsulate 10 meters. After absorbing 11 amethysts and breaking through to the god level, Linley's divine sense was still only 100 meters. A high god's divine sense should be able to cover 1,000 kilometers. This was Linley's hypothesis. That Loisius continued to speak using divine sense. "Right now, we are heading to Moon Lake. The 1,000 of you, follow us." And then, with Loisius and the other 3-star fiends taking the lead, the 20+ fiends simultaneously flew into the air, heading towards Moon Lake. Immediately, the 1,000-man army of fiend trial participants flew into the air as well, with Linley's group naturally amongst them. They all flew towards Moon Lake. Crompton alone isn't that frightening. But I'm worried about those friends of his, Linley said to himself. At Moon Lake, I expect those friends of his won't help him when the battle is going on. Linley felt certain about this. Based on their behavior in the Fiend Castle, and how those friends had fanned the flames and egged him on, most likely none of them truly considered Crompton a close, lifelong friend. Moon Lake was extremely wide and vast, nearly 10 kilometers wide. A gentle wind blew, creating slight ripples and waves across the surface of Moon Lake. In the center of Moon Lake, there was an ancient castle. This castle was multiple kilometers wide as well, and could be considered a fairly large one. 20+ fiends and 1,000 gods were standing in the middle of Moon Lake. Loisius and his two comrades, one of which was a violet-haired, black-robed man, the other one being a blue-haired, muscular man, moved at virtually the same moment. Flying into the air, they flew at high speed towards Moon Lake Castle, and right behind them were the fiends. "Let's go." Linley and the rest of the 1,000 didn't hesitate, immediately flying into the air as well. Swish! 3 figures suddenly appeared in the air above Moon Lake Castle. It was Loisius and the other two. They live up to being 5-star fiends. Their speed is so fast. Crompton and the other fiends sighed in amazement in their hearts. Loisius hovered there in mid-air, staring down at the castle. "I don't want to fight inside the castle. Third bro, split this castle in half." "Yes, big brother." The blue-haired muscular youth flipped his hand over, and a long black saber appeared in it. The blade of this long saber was extremely broad, at least 30 centimeters. The entire thing radiated a bloody, murderous aura. Clearly, it had drank the blood of quite a few experts. Wielding this long black saber, the blue-haired muscular youth's body suddenly moved, and he struck out with the weapon. Bam! An enormous black saber shadow chopped straight down towards the castle. Wherever the saber shadow passed, space itself split apart, creating massive earthquake-like ripples which emanated downwards in the air below the saber shadow. The part of the waters of Moon Lake which were affected by the ripples began to crackle, and then the water in that area completely vanished. And then, the water elsewhere in Moon Lake rushed in to fill the gap. Boom! The enormous blade shadow chopped against the castle. The walls of the castle actually began to shine with all sorts of complicated magical runes that were black in color, flashing with enormous divine power. The magical runes continually to flash, weakening the strength of the attack. The attack, despite powerful, had been forcibly blocked head-on by the castle. The faces of Loisius and the other two changed. Who is the master of this castle? Did he himself set up this enormous defensive magic formation, or did he ask someone else to help him with it? Loisius felt a hint of worry. His third brother's material attack was the strongest of the three. Loisius knew exactly how powerful that saber chop was. To be able to block that saber, the magic formation of this castle was something which only a true master of magic formations was capable of setting up. If he was able to invite a master to set it up, the lord of this castle was undoubtedly extremely wealthy. If he himself set it up, then the insides of this castle definitely wouldn't be ordinary. There would be countless dangers within. No wonder it is a 6-star assignment. Loisius frowned. The fiends behind them, as well as the 1,000 gods, all stared in confusion. "This castle seems to be extraordinary," BB said with pursed lips. "It is similar to the magic formation which previously protected the Radiant Temple. They are both magic formations, but this one is millions of times more powerful." Linley also sensed that this assignment wouldn't be as easily accomplished as they might hope. It seems it's true that only a small number out of 1,000 are likely to survive. Right at this moment, a pink mist suddenly began to emanate from the castle. This pink mist expanded very quickly, covering virtually the entire surface of the water of Moon Lake, with all of the fiends and the 1,000 gods within it. Huh! Linley frowned. This pink mist was very thick. Linley could only barely see within a few dozen meters of himself. Crunch! The sound of a weapon piercing into someone's body. "Bastard, die, die." From afar, energy ripples from combat suddenly appeared, causing Linley's group to be shocked. Linley wanted to use his divine sense to take a look. After all, Linley's divine sense was able to spread to an area of nearly 100 meters. But just as Linley spread out his divine sense a little bit, he suddenly sensed a hint of a murderous intent grow in his heart, and his soul was affected as well. Only that blue light within Linley's sea of consciousness lit up. Not right. Linley instantly grew clear-minded again. Everyone, don't use your divine sense, and don't breathe that mist into your body. The loud voice of Loisius rang out. This pink mist is a type of poison mist created by a high god master who trains in the edicts of death. It is designed specifically to drown out the murderous feelings in one's soul. No matter what, your spiritual energy and your soul cannot come into contact with that pink mist. What was divine sense? Divine sense was nothing more than spiritual energy which was spread out of the body. Once a person's spiritual energy came into contact with that pink mist, it would be impacted. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 20, Cannon Fodder. In the air above Moon Lake. That pink mist was everywhere. Within the thick mist, everyone including Linley, without being told, released their god realm, causing the pink mist to stay away from them. The god realm of a deity wasn't that large, but with over 1,000 experts utilizing it at the same time. Instantly, there wasn't a hint of that fog left in the air above the castle. We haven't even entered the castle yet, but people have started to die. Linley said to himself. Just then, when that pink fog had first come out, quite a few people had their souls contaminated by that poison fog. Those people who had been more murderous to begin with had instantly exploded into madness. In the blink of an eye, nearly 10 gods had died. This fog truly is powerful. BB sighed in praise. Fortunately, I didn't release my divine sense just now. But Delia said, just now, when I heard the sounds of combat, I sent out my divine sense to see what was going on. But of course, once I heard the warning, I immediately withdrew it. Linley couldn't help but to turn and look at Delia. Delia, are you all right? Linley was frightened. Do I look like I'm in trouble? Delia laughed. Just now, I just felt a bit grouchy. I felt only just a tiny hint of killing intent, well within my ability to control. Delia explained. Linley suddenly frowned and he looked to the side. There were 2 gods nearby him chatting. Oxuakesu, this time we're in trouble. This is a poison fog developed by a high god master of the edicts of death. Something like this is extremely precious, but the Lord of Moon Lake Castle used it in such a casual manner. And that magic formation just now, this all indicates that the master of this castle is extremely wealthy. Right. This sort of poison fog that stirs up an urge to kill isn't that powerful. When I was in Black Sand Castle at Royal Wing City, I once saw someone selling a poison which upon contact with one's soul, could cause the soul to spontaneously combust and then collapse. But of course, that price was sky high. The 1,000 gods who were trial participants all began to discuss this amongst themselves while hovering in mid-air, waiting for the 20+ fiends to come to a decision. If the fiends didn't go to deal with the master of the castle and those black-robed guards, they wouldn't dare go charging in. Everyone, Linley included, understood that what the lord of the castle had put on display just now was most likely just a tiny little trick for him. He hadn't shown any of his true killing strokes. How would gods like Linley dare to charge in and throw their lives away? At the bottom of Moon Lake Castle. Within a wide main hall. The steward, dressed in a violet uniform, was standing to one side, while a black-haired elder whose eyebrows drooped all the way down to his chest was sampling some wine. Casually, the elder said, Belam Biluomu, have you completed your investigations regarding what is going on outside? Milord, the leaders are a group of fiends. The violet-robed steward frowned. Milord, the situation seems to be bad. I'm afraid that some people intentionally sent out a mission for the Fiend Castle to attack us. An attack of fiends would be troublesome for anyone. The same was true for the master of this castle. The black-haired elder's eyebrows furrowed. He was silent for a moment. Forget them. Any who enter the castle shall be killed. The black-haired elder said in a low voice. All of the gold-robed guards are under your control. Deploy Tersens and the others as well. Someone is intentionally acting against me. After dealing with this affair, I will definitely have to investigate this. Yes, milord. The violet-robed steward bowed. In the air above Moon Lake Castle, the group of people continued to hover, while their leader, Loisius, was vexed. Loisius knew very well that with enough money and power, one could definitely go to Black Sand Castle to buy some forbidden items and turn this entire castle into a death trap. Even he didn't dare to charge in rashly. No other options. Loisius' face sank as he looked at the surrounding fiends. The surrounding fiends exchanged glances. It wasn't as though they had never encountered this sort of situation before. They all knew what they should do right now. Let those fiend trial participants be their cannon fodder. Let them lead the charge into the castle. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 20-plus fiends simultaneously floated over to the air above the large group of gods including Linley, while a voice rang out. This poison fog is everywhere, while the castle itself is unbreakable. All we can do now is go into the castle. Right now, the 1,000 of you will divide into 10 squads and enter the castle through the windows and corridors. We fiends will also divide into 10 squads, following behind you. You will deal with ordinary gold-robed guards. If you encounter any black-robed guards, we fiends will act. When this voice rang out, the nearly 1,000 gods who were participating in this trial all had changed looks on their faces. Bastards! They are making us into cannon fodder. Linley cursed inwardly. Everyone immediately understood. However, they didn't dare to refuse, because they all knew how astonishingly powerful a strong high god could be. Perhaps, against the likes of Crompton, who only became a high god through fusing with a divine spark, a group of gods would be able to kill when joining forces. But a 5-star fiend like Loisius was different. Someone capable of becoming a 5-star fiend was someone who had definitely fused profound mysteries. A 5-star fiend wouldn't find it too hard to kill all 1,000 of them. And there were 3 of those 5-star fiends. And a whole pile of 4-star fiends as well. There was no way for them to resist at all. All of you, form a squad. Fiends immediately began to divide them up. However, the gods didn't respond. Hurry up. Or can it be that you want to die right now? A cold voice rang out. The gods looked at each other, finally complying. They had no other options. There's no way we gods can join forces to kill them all. Linley glanced sideways at Moon Lake Castle. The corridors inside the castle aren't too wide. Only 2 or 3 people will be able to walk side by side at most. With 100 people in each squad, there's no way we can simultaneously suddenly attack the high gods behind. There was no chance of resistance. All of the gods could only choose to obey. After all, the fiends weren't trying to kill them, just have them go in first. They still had a chance at life. Hey, let's take charge of that squad. Crompton hurriedly called out. The ordinary 2-star fiends and 3-star fiends were all responsible for staying behind the 100-man squads. Haha, Crompton, geez. People immediately began to laugh. They all knew that because of Linley's group, Crompton decided to choose the responsibility of overseeing that squad. This was the squad Linley was in. The main gates to the castle were tightly shut. There was no way to break through it forcibly at all. The 100-man squads could thus only slip in through the windows. Linley's team was mixed into one of the squads, and they too slipped into the room, then began to search for an enemy in the corridor behind them. This pink mist has filled the entire castle. There's no way to see what's going on up ahead at all. If we aren't careful, we might be ambushed. Linley held Delia's hand as he and BB carefully followed the rest of the squad in moving forwards. Linley didn't dare to stay too close to the rear. Crompton and the others were in the rear. There was no fog in front of Linley, because all of the gods were using their god realm, which was more than enough to make it so that there was no pink fog around them. However, in front of them, outside the area of the god realm, there was the boundless pink mist. Everyone was careful and advanced slowly. "Boss, how do you think that pink fog thing was developed?" BB chatted with Linley through divine sense. As there was no poison mist near them, they naturally were able to chat using divine sense. It is able to directly affect the soul. I heard others say that there are even more terrifying poison mists that can cause the soul to spontaneously combust and collapse. Who knows? In the Yulon continent, I did suffer that attack from the Grand Warlock. Right, in Redbud Castle, didn't you see those God's Lair arrows? The God's Lair arrows had been dipped in poison, which is why they were so powerful. Linley messaged back through divine sense. And I hear that many of the most terrifying poisons are only available in Black Sand Castle. BB pursed his lips. I wonder what's inside this castle. Linley. I keep on having a very bad feeling. Delia said through her divine sense. Be careful. Don't get in over your head. In the infernal realm, there are many attacks which we have never encountered before. Have you ever encountered a poison mist like that, which can cause someone's soul to be filled with murderous urges? Be careful. Seeing the concerned look in Delia's face, Linley couldn't help but feel a surge of warmth. Hurry up. You are moving too slow. Crompton's angry bellow rang out from behind. Although Linley's group of gods were unhappy, nobody dared to say anything. The castle had multiple layers. Linley's group searched everywhere in the corridors on the first floor without being able to find a single person. However, when they headed down the stairway leading down into the second floor was clearly much larger than the first one, and its layout was much more complicated as well. How bizarre. All the gods felt a sense of pressure. No matter where they went, that pink mist ahead of them continued to block them. This caused Linley's squad to feel that the world in front of them was utterly strange and mysterious. Their nerves were continuously taut, which was quite taxing. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of a gust of wind. Slash! 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 Before Linley had a chance to react, an arrow suddenly appeared through an opening between the people in front of him, shooting towards him. The speed was simply too fast, and Linley wasn't able to dodge at all. Bang! The arrow struck onto Linley's earthen robe. This robe was the pulse-guard armor created after the fusion of two types of profound mysteries. The arrow wasn't able to shoot through Linley's earthen robe. However, in front of Linley, more than 20 people immediately collapsed to the floor, their bodies riddled with arrows. They had no more life in them. Because of their death, the unending pink fog around them quickly swirled forward. They all died. Linley was momentarily stunned. Linley previously had nearly 30 people in front, but now more than half had died. Actually, those arrows had been shot out very densely from the end of the hallway. Virtually all of the gods who had been struck were killed, with only one or two that didn't die. One was Linley, while the other, despite having been struck, had been able to take the hit. Clearly, his soul defense was excellent. Whew! Many of the luckily surviving gods up ahead immediately used their interspatial rings to collect the corpses. It must be known that those corpses all had divine sparks and interspatial rings on them. Those interspatial rings had large amounts of money within them. Boss, your reaction time was too slow. Linley, having been momentarily astonished, didn't react until all the corpses had been collected. BB, on the other hand, had collected too. Linley, are you all right? Delia hurriedly looked at Linley. How could the boss have any problems? BB snickered. The boss's soul protection and his exterior layer of protection are both very powerful. Actually, BB had been very concerned about Linley as well, but because he and Linley were spiritually linked, if something had happened to Linley, BB would have known. Retreat, retreat. The gods up ahead immediately called out. From behind, Crompton bellowed, "Keep moving forward. What are you afraid of? Keep moving forward." The gods up ahead couldn't help but feel enraged, and they cursed in their hearts, "You aren't the one being killed. Of course you have nothing to fear." However, the people who had the courage to participate in the Fiend trials naturally weren't cowards. They wouldn't quit just because of this, but they all became even more cautious. "Delia, stay behind me," Linley said. After having suffered that sudden arrow attack, Linley was now in the vanguard of the squad. There were only a few people ahead of him. With those people having just faced that dangerous event, their movement naturally became even slower. Crompton, however, was leisurely walking behind them. He was sneering coldly in his heart, "I didn't expect you not to die this time. But next time, it will be your turn." Crompton was quite eager to see Linley die. "Captain, that squad is continuing to advance." Within the gloomy darkness, 10 gold-robed warriors were silently, stealthily walking while hunched over, each of them wearing a moon-shaped interspatial ring on their fingers. Humph. A group of them died, but the rest are continuing forward. They truly are daring. At the next choke point, we'll give them another round and kill a few dozen more of them. Killing people like this sure is easy. In normal circumstances, how can we so easily and blithely use God's layer arrows like this? These toys are quite expensive. The gold-robed guards quickly reached the next choke point. Linley's squad, however, continued to advance carefully. They didn't know that soon, yet another group of them would perish. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 21, Chaos. The corridor up ahead was filled with that thick pink fog, completely hiding what was ahead of them. Crackle. The earthen robe covering Linley was only covering most of his body. Right now, however, Linley's hands were also covered with an earth-yellow membrane. His neck and even his face were all covered with a layer of this earth-yellow membrane as well. This was all part of his pulse guard armor. The only place that was revealed was his eyes. Not just Linley. After having suffered that ambush of arrows, all of the gods in Linley's squad understood that when those dense arrows were shot out, they covered the entire area. In addition, they moved so quickly that there was no time to react at all. Therefore, the only option was to protect the entire body. Head, arms, legs, neck, the entire body had to be protected. Although the squad had over 80 people, everyone crept forward silently through the corridor, not making any sound at all. The only sound which could occasionally be heard was Crompton's irritating bark of, "Forward, faster." But his barks only echoed in the corridor, making the entire castle seem all the more deathly quiet. Ah! Many miserable cries rang out together, while at the same time, from afar, the sound of angry shouts and cursing could be heard. Linley's squad couldn't help but pause in their advance. Yet another squad has suffered an ambush. All of them understood. So this was the true purpose of the master of the castle releasing this poison fog. Linley now understood. Because the pink fog was everywhere, Linley and the others didn't dare to use their divine sense to search. After all, if the pink mist so much as slightly contaminated a soul, it would be affected. Even if they didn't go crazy, their performance in battle would decrease. Linley's group didn't dare to use their divine sense, and the enemies didn't either. However, the enemies were very familiar with this castle's layout, and it was possible they were lying in wait within certain hidden areas. This caused Linley's side to be at an absolute disadvantage. "Those of you up front, hurry up!" A loud rebuking shout from a fiend in the rear. "What's going on with all of you guys? So frightened that your legs have gone soft? The group of people at the front of the squad were extremely furious. The front of the squad was the most dangerous place, and they were supposed to hurry up. Wasn't this forcing them to their deaths? But they didn't dare to disobey these fiends. After all, the fiends on this mission were all high gods. Time for a turn. The squad arrived at a turn in the corridor, and they all followed it towards a different corridor. Hidden in the darkness, 10 gold-robed guards were holding their bows at the ready. About time. They've already rounded the turn. The captain of the gold-robed guards said softly. Everyone, prepare to attack. Got it, Captain. The eyes of the gold-robed guards were all shining. They held their bows at the ready, 5 arrows in their hands. They would shoot out 5 arrows each time. To these gold-robed guards, although their accuracy would be impacted, however, they were firing blindly to begin with, because the corridors were straight. All they had to do, therefore, was fire in straight lines. You lot really are wasteful. The captain was only using a single arrow. Whoever gets hit by your arrow, Captain, will definitely die. The captain laughed calmly. Actually, the intelligence reports of the Fiend Castle weren't completely accurate. Indeed, Moon Lake Castle did have the black-robed guards and the gold-robed guards, 2 different levels of guards, and all of the black-robed guards were fairly powerful high gods, true. But the gold-robed guards, they weren't all gods. To be more specific, the vast majority of them were gods, while a very small number of them were high gods. They didn't become black-robed guards because they had been sent to be the team captains of the gold-robed guards. The gold-robed guards, in turn, only had 2 levels, the ordinary guard members, and the team captains. Generally speaking, the team captains would listen to the orders of the black-robed guards. 10 black-robed guards were responsible for managing all of the gold-robed guards. The captain of the team of gold-robed guards which was lying in ambush for Linley's squad was a high god. However, he was one who had become a deity through fusing with the divine spark. After I open up the screening wall, listen for my signal, then immediately fire. Swish. Very suddenly, in the darkness, a stone wall suddenly opened as fast as lightning, revealing the 10 gold-robed guards behind. But because of the pink fog's concealment, Linley's squad had no idea that at the end of their corridor, there were 10 gold-robed guards. The gold-robed guards stared coldly at the pink mist in front of them. Fire! The captain ordered with his divine sense to all of them simultaneously. Because he was the one who had opened the stone wall, he was the last one to fire. Swish! 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 Instantly, like a rainstorm, 46 arrows covered every part of the corridor. In the instant after they finished firing, the stone wall immediately closed shut once more. From the outside, nobody would be able to tell that the stone wall was movable. Linley's squad was currently making their way forward carefully. Linley was staring forward carefully, but suddenly, Linley's pupils shrank and his face changed. The dense rain of arrows instantly tore through the air, mercilessly shooting down upon Linley and the others in front, or through the cracks to the people in the rear. These arrows were simply too fast, and by the time Linley and the others saw the arrows, there was only a distance of a few dozen meters. A few dozen meters distance simply wasn't enough for Linley and the others to react and dodge in time. Delia. In that short moment, Linley was only able to make a single movement. He stretched out his arms, striving to stand in front of Delia and use his body to completely block her from the arrows. Swish! Swish! Although Linley wasn't the very first person in front, 2 arrows landed on his body. The arrows struck Linley like a thunderbolt, but the earthen robe on Linley's body was made of countless ripples of divine power, instantly and completely counteracting the penetrative power of the arrows. Bibi was struck by an arrow as well. Clang! A metallic ringing sound could be heard, and the arrow had actually exploded and shattered as the arrow fell to the floor. Too weak. Bibi laughed delighted. We're all fine. Linley immediately could tell that Delia and Bibi were both safe. He couldn't help but feel relieved. But then, Linley's face suddenly changed. In his line of sight, he suddenly saw from afar a terrifying arrow. "There's one more arrow coming." This was the arrow which had been fired last. But this was also the most terrifying arrow, the arrow of a high god. The god's lair arrow glimmered with a sinister black light as it pierced through space, causing space to ripple. It gave Linley no chance to react at all as it collided directly with Linley's chest. Bang! The penetrative power of this arrow was simply too great. Although those countless ripples of divine force wildly attempted to reduce its penetrative power, in the end, the arrow just barely broke through. Ah! Linley fell to one knee on the ground, powerless. Bibi, who had been in the process of collecting corpses nearby, suddenly turned, his face changed. "Boss." Delia, who had just been letting out a sigh of relief, was shocked as well. "Humph, he finally died." At the back of the squad, the bald Crompton had been watching Linley this entire time. When he saw Linley fall to one knee, a hint of a smile appeared on his face. "I didn't kill you. Someone else killed you." Ha ha. He was extremely delighted. The arrow itself wasn't terrifying. What was truly terrifying was the poison which the arrowhead had been dipped in. A grey energy stream instantly attacked Linley's brain, viciously piercing towards Linley's soul. Bang! It struck violently against that translucent membrane. The translucent scaled membrane was a soul-protecting sovereign artifact. Aside from the breach in it, the other parts of it were as good as when it was undamaged. More than half of the energy of that grey energy stream dissipated upon colliding with it. The remaining grey energy, as though it had a mind of its own which knew that the translucent membrane was hard to deal with, suddenly completely split apart, transforming into grey specks of light which covered the entire translucent membrane. Naturally, that included the breach. And that breach was sealed by Linley using his spiritual energy into a bandage. "What is this?" Linley was shocked. He had the feeling that the grey dots had a mind. Swish! Instantly, all of the grey dots, as though having discovered that the bandage was weak, immediately began to wildly attack the bandage. The remaining part of the energy all flowed towards the breach, entering Linley's sea of consciousness. At this moment, the many grey dots divided into three. These three weaker surges of grey energy attacked Linley's divine spark, his wind-style divine clone, and his original body. "It is actually attacking all of my souls at once." Linley was greatly shocked. But although he was shocked, Linley still controlled the spiritual energy in his sea of consciousness, creating a pulse-guard defense. A large amount of spiritual energy ripples clashed with the grey dots of light. Moments later, all of the grey dots had been extinguished, while half of Linley's spiritual energy had been used up as well. That really was dangerous. Only now did Linley let out a sigh of relief. "Boss, boss. Linley. Linley." Delia and Bibi were both by his side, calling out to him softly. Although it took a fairly long time to describe the soul poison entering his body, it actually only happened over the course of 1 or 2 seconds, after which Linley opened his eyes. "I'm fine." Linley revealed a hint of a smile towards them. Only now did Delia and Bibi let out sighs of relief. Linley, however, was feeling rather somber. That poison really is frightening. No wonder the staff member at Redbud Castle had said that this god's lair arrow is capable of killing almost any god. Too bizarre, too frightening. As Linley saw it, this god's lair arrow's poison had a will of its own. Although it didn't have the capacity to actually think, it had the ability to avoid strong points and seek out weak points. However, to this poison, the soul has a powerful draw to it. Linley knew this because if the poison was capable of thought, it would have focused its efforts on destroying a single soul. But the poison didn't. Instead, it attacked Linley's 3 souls at the same time. He didn't die. Crompton, at the back of the squad, saw Linley stand up again. He couldn't help but stare with wide eyes, and then his face turned savage. Humph. He survived yet again. I want to see how many more times he will survive. Even if you manage to survive the sole attack of the God's Lair arrow, I imagine you must have used up almost all of your spiritual power. Hurry up. Crompton bellowed yet again. This time, 10 or so people had died in the squad. After having been ambushed twice, only 60 gods were left. Linley's group of 3 were now at the very front of the squad. Boss, we can't let this continue. BB began to worry. I know. Linley understood this as well. Who knew what other tricks the enemies were planning? If they were continuously in this sort of situation where they could only play defense, sooner or later, when their defense was no longer able to handle it, they would be finished. We're at the 3rd floor. Linley's group slowly began to make their way down the stairs. Everyone, be careful. A god called out. The 3rd floor is definitely going to be even more dangerous than the 2nd floor. In a large, empty room on the 3rd floor of the castle, 10 gold-robed guards entered from above through a secret passageway. Our master really has gone wild this time. He has even brought out the death god golems. The gold-robed guards were very excited. But we only have 20 of these death god golems in total. Our squad is very lucky to have even one of them. The gold-robed captain laughed calmly. Erike Irui, you can be the one to control the death god golem we have been given. I don't need it. The gold-robed captain was a high god, after all. Although the death god golem was powerful, it was only on par with him. The 3rd floor was extremely large, and the layout of the castle was so chaotic that as one walked, one might even forget which road they were traveling on. They could only choose to walk around randomly. We can't let this continue. Linley walked slowly, but up ahead was that perpetual pink mist. Nobody knew what would appear from up ahead. Suddenly. Halt! An explosive shout rang out. Brothers, flee! Chaotic sounds suddenly could be heard from everywhere in the castle, and the 60+ people in Linley's squad all were stunned. A look of delight appeared on Linley's face. Linley immediately spread out his divine sense to cover the 40 or 50 people towards the front. Brothers, if this continues, we're all going to die. Let's all flee together and move separately. That way, we won't be caught and killed in one fell swoop by the people of the castle. Brothers, flee! Linley suddenly called out in a loud voice. In virtually the same moment, all of the gods, as though having been trained together, simultaneously scurried towards the nearby rooms, or deeper into the mist, or into the nearby passageways. In the blink of an eye, more than 60 gods had all run off. Crompton's group of 3 fiends were stupefied. Who should we chase? Crompton turned to look at the 2 fiends next to him. Chase my ass. A fiend cursed softly. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 22, Death God Golem. 60+ people had fled. Only 3 fiends were overseeing them. How many could they catch? One of them, a gold-haired fiend, sent with his divine sense, right now, let's forget about trying to use those fiend trial participants to block for us. Come, let's go find the black-robed guards. These 2 fiends immediately began to move forward quickly. Crompton, while in his heart unwilling to let the matter rest, still followed them. Linley, you better hope that I don't meet you in the future. Next time definitely won't be like this time. Crompton regretted not having killed Linley earlier. Actually, it wasn't that Crompton had been merciful, it was that he simply couldn't kill Linley. At that time, the 1,000 fiend trial participants had all been divided into groups of 10. If Crompton were to try and kill Linley, the other fiends probably wouldn't have agreed. After all, if at a time like that, he was to suddenly kill Linley for no reason, most likely that would cause the rest of the 1,000 Fiend trial participants to flee and scatter. Within the Moon Lake Castle, the scene was one of utter chaos. Chaos, chaos, everywhere. The members of the 10 squads were wildly fleeing, and hundreds of them were dispersing throughout the third floor. Some of the gold-robed guards who had been hidden in some of the rooms discovered, to their shock, people charging within. Although they were hidden quite well, with hundreds of people running around chaotically, naturally some would bump into each other. The battle suddenly began. Bang! Bang! Energy explosions, angry roars, and the sounds of battle constantly emanated from every part of the castle. Within a hidden room, Linley, Delia, and Bibi were here. It sure is noisy outside. Bibi's face was covered in smiles, and he turned to look at Linley. Boss, if we hide here and all of the gold-robed guards get killed, doesn't that mean we won't be able to get moon rings? Linley said with a frown, there's quite a few of those gold-robed guards, and the strength of this castle is most likely more powerful than our side had predicted. Linley still remembered that arrow just now. His pulse guard armor was developed through the fusion of 2 profound mysteries, and was more than 10 times stronger in defense than an ordinary god's. Despite such defensive strength, it was still pierced through. Linley was certain that the person who shot out that arrow was very likely a high god. In the castle, the most powerful black-robed guards won't start ambushing people right away. It was definitely done by the gold-robed guards. Linley understood this logic. Petty actions like ambushes would definitely be done by those of lower status. Linley couldn't help but sigh, Delia, Bibi, beware the gold-robed guards. The gold-robed guards aren't all gods as we thought. Linley then immediately conveyed his thoughts to Delia and Bibi. They had to be careful. If they were overconfident in dealing with those gold-robed guards, they would most likely be finished. Killing god-level gold-robed guards and high god-level gold-robed guards will result in getting the same thing, a moon ring. Bibi pursed his lips as he spoke. I hope our luck is good. Although Linley's group was conversing, they were using their god realm to prevent sound from leaving their room to the outside. Boom! The wall suddenly shook massively. There's a battle outside. Linley, Delia, and Bibi all immediately stood up. Moving as fast as lightning, they moved to the side of the wall. If someone charged in through the door, Linley's group would be able to immediately attack them. Bang! Yet another collision. Although the wooden door was sturdy, it was smashed open, and a human figure fell down powerlessly from outside, smashing against the ground. Linley's team didn't move. That's a corpse. Linley's team was instantly able to tell. The corpse's head had already been utterly smashed apart, and a divine spark was rolling on the ground. Linley, Delia, and Bibi all held their breaths. Whoosh! A human figure suddenly charged in. Kill! Linley's team moved. Delia immediately executed her profound mysteries of dimensional space, and that figure was instantly slowed down, his speed dropping. Meanwhile, the adamantine heavy sword in Linley's hand mercilessly smashed straight down on the figure. His most powerful attack. Voidwave sword. F***ck off and die. Bibi laughed loudly as he gave the head a kick. Bang! The figure smashed into the nearby wall, then landed heavily to the floor. A layer of magical patterns on the wall flashed slightly, but the wall itself wasn't damaged in the slightest. The entire castle was supported by a magical formation. However, not all walls had it. Generally speaking, only the primary supporting walls or the prisons, while the other walls and doors didn't have any protection. Huh! Linley's team's faces changed. Not dead. The figure actually stood up. Only, his head had become distorted by Bibi's tough kick. The flesh on his face had exploded, revealing the metallic skull within. The metallic skull's eyes were made of 2 rubies, and it stared bizarrely at Linley's team, emitting a mechanical chuckle. 3 gods. Not bad. Divine power began to flow on the surface of the metallic skull, and it immediately healed. That isn't human, and it doesn't have a soul. Linley was greatly shocked. His Void Wave sword hadn't found a spirit to attack. Linley had the feeling as though this person in front of him was wearing the skin of a human, but on the inside was some sort of metallic monster that had no soul at all. What is it? Linley, Delia, and BB were all puzzled. Even if it was a metallic life form, it should have a soul. Any and all types of life forms had the soul as their base. But the creature in front of them had no soul at all. It definitely wasn't living. But this creature not only was conscious, it was even capable of speech. Some sort of strange clone. This was Linley's guess. Boss, that freak's body is very hard. I delivered a full-strength kick just now, but I didn't cause his head to explode. How bizarre. BB didn't understand it either. He knew exactly how powerful his own strength was. In terms of pure strength, not even Linley was a match for him. This was one of the abilities which God Eater rats had after they digested divine sparks. Since you have encountered me, all three of you will die. This freak with the glowing red eyes stared at Linley's team, then suddenly moved. Boom. BB charged to the front, fighting with the freak head on. Bang. 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 BB and that freak's method of battle was very bizarre. It was as though they were two barbarians, using their fists and feet to viciously attack the opponent. Over the course of this wild battle, the freak's entire outer layer of skin exploded out and blood flowed, revealing the metallic internal body. This metallic body was extremely hard. How is that possible? The freak was astonished. Mother of Asterisker, I want to see whose body is tougher, mine or yours. BB shouted angrily. BB was extremely confident in his body's defensive power. In his heart, he said to himself, after digesting so many divine sparks, if I still can't compete against a freak like this, I really would have lost all face for us God Eater rats. Boss, this definitely isn't the real body. The real body should be outside. BB said through divine sense. Swish. Linley immediately flew out. Indeed, in the corridor outside, there was a gold-robed guard who had a look of shock on his face. He wasn't shocked at Linley coming out, he was shocked by BB. There's actually someone whose body is this tough. He dares to fight against a death god golem head-on. He couldn't believe it. A death god golem. In truth, this was a human-shaped weapon. Precisely speaking, it was a type of divine artifact. A special divine artifact. The 20 death god golems in the possession of Moon Lake Castle were all high-level ones, human-shaped divine artifacts of the high god level. The energy source for these death god golems was the divine jewel within its body. The person controlling a death god golem had to first bind it with blood, which would allow him to then control the death god golem to attack others. Although the death god golem's body was incomparably tough, it did have a flaw: it was incapable of spiritual attacks, because it had no spirit. I don't care who you are. The gold-robed guard let out a cold laugh. A warblade suddenly appeared in the hands of the death god golem that was battling BB. That warblade was stained with poison, the same poison used in God's lair arrows. Generally speaking, once this sort of poison entered a person's body, it would immediately begin attacking the opponent's soul. Thus, it could only be used once. The second time, the warblade would no longer have any poison on it. The gold-robed guardsman didn't want to waste it, but right now, he had no choice but to use it. Using a blade. BB stared. Humph. Then I won't waste any more time with you either. A dagger appeared in BB's hand as well. This was the black dagger which Beirut had given him. For now, let us move away from the battle between BB and the death god golem. On the outside, Linley and the gold-robed guard were beginning to battle. When the gold-robed guard fought with Linley, he instantly split into two, now having two divine clones outside. Divine clones. Linley couldn't help but feel surprised. But despite that, Linley still mercilessly chopped over with his adamantine heavy sword. Clang. Weapons collided. The Voidwave sword's attack passed out from the adamantine heavy sword, shooting straight towards one of the divine clones of the gold-robed guard. The other divine clone wanted to use this chance to stab towards Linley, but at this time, its speed suddenly slowed. Bonds of wind. The gold-robed guard instantly understood. Not far away, behind Linley, Delia was wielding the spear of Cortez and sent it thrusting forward with a powerful stab. A ray of light flew out, and in virtually an instant, it pierced through the gold-robed guard's chest, passing straight through it. The gold-robed guard's divine clone couldn't help but shudder. Not good. The gold-robed guard's face changed as he looked towards Linley in shock. Just now, the divine clone of his which had been hit by the Voidwave sword had already died. He was completely capable of sensing how terrifying Linley's Voidwave sword was. Such an astonishing soul attack is definitely the product of fused profound mysteries. Fused profound mysteries. And a soul attack. Flee. The gold-robed guard instantly came to this decision as he began to scurry towards the outside. You want to run? Linley's speed instantly began to raise. Ah! The gold-robed man discovered, to his agony, that his current speed was only half his normal speed. This was because his entire body was being pressured. That detestable woman. He knew that the pressure his body was under was the doing of Delia. He also understood. There was no way for him to defeat Linley. Faced with Linley's attack, the gold-robed guard counter-attacked in grief and fury. Boom. When faced with death, he naturally brought out his most powerful attack. But under the assault of the Voidwave sword, the gold-robed guard slumped over. With a flip of the hand, Linley stored the two corpses of this gold-robed guard into his interspatial ring. Delia, thanks. Linley walked over. What a pity that I don't know how to use soul attacks, Delia laughed. Since they had decided to take part in the Fiend trials, naturally they had to increase their power as much as they could. Thus, although they had sold off one of their high god artifacts, Linley had given the other one, the Spear of Cortez, to Delia, having her fuse it and learn how to use it. The fast profound mystery matched well with the spear, while Delia also applied the dimensional space technique. When Delia's spear thrust forth, it definitely possessed great power. Why did it stop? From inside the room, Bibi's unhappy voice could be heard. Linley and Delia exchanged a glance, both laughing. The death god golem was slumped in a corner, completely unmoving. Bibi saw Linley and Delia walk in, and he hurriedly said, "Boss, that metallic monster isn't moving anymore. Did you kill the main body?" Bibi was able to guess that perhaps this was caused by the death of the original body. Right. Linley nodded. What is this? Delia looked puzzledly at the death god golem. Linley's group had never seen a death god golem before. Death god golems were an extremely valuable sort of human-shaped weapon. It was much more valuable than an ordinary high god artifact. A single death god golem's price was far beyond even a high god spark. Thus the entire Moon Lake Castle only had 20 of them. First, collect this thing. Linley said. After we leave, I'll investigate and see what this metallic thing is. Linley didn't understand that actually, all they had to do to use the death god golem was to bind it with blood. With a flip of his hands, Bibi stored the metallic creature into his interspatial ring. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 23, Moon Ring. The sound of battling rang out unabated throughout Moon Lake Castle, and the battle was extremely fierce. Within the room. Right now, we only have a single moon ring. We still are missing two. Delia looked towards Linley and Bibi as she spoke. Bibi frowned. It's just two. Let's go. We'll go and kill two more of the gold-robed guards, that's all. Don't be hasty. Linley retrieved the moon ring, first binding it with blood, and then removing the contents of the moon ring. This gold-robed guard really is quite rich. His total net worth is over 1,000,000 inkstones. Right. There's a few amethysts as well. What a coincidence. Before this, when Linley had been struck by the God's Lair arrow's soul poison, and then executed his Voidwave sword, he had used up quite a bit of spiritual energy. Linley immediately stored one of the amethysts into his coiling dragon ring, completely refining it, and then allowed his spiritual energy to begin to absorb the soul essences. Linley's sea of consciousness thus had its spiritual energy completely recover as a large amount of soul essences began to be absorbed. The boss is the smartest. He first took out the treasures inside. Bibi spoke, and the nearby Delia laughed as well. During this fiend trial, they only needed to give up the moon ring. As for the wealth inside of it, one was permitted to take it for one's own use. Let's go out. Everyone, be careful. Linley instructed. Linley was the first to walk into the corridor. Just as Linley walked out the door. Huh. Linley's face suddenly changed dramatically. Right outside the door, a spear suddenly pierced towards Linley like a lightning-fast viper. Linley was caught completely off guard and wasn't able to react at all. Bang! Linley was sent flying by that spear thrust, but in mid-air, Linley somersaulted lightning fast, landing on the ground. Linley looked at the person who had ambushed him. It was a gold-robed guard who was wielding a silver spear, a look of utter shock on the guard's face. What powerful defense! The guard hadn't expected that Linley would be able to take the spear thrust of his head on, without even his clothes being damaged. Bibi and Delia immediately came out, both shocked as well. Three gods. The face of the gold-robed guard changed dramatically. Flee. He knew well the limits of his own power. Perhaps 1 against 2, he had a chance, but 1 against 3, he would be finished. He had no idea that actually, his comrade had already been killed by Linley. In a flash, the gold-robed guard moved over 100 meters. Fleeing at a speed so fast that not even Delia had a chance to catch him. Scree! Bibi emitted that ear-piercing sound. Suddenly, from behind Bibi appeared that illusion of a god-eater rat. This time, the illusion was only 5 or 6 meters tall, the same as the height of the corridor. AHH. The gold-robed guard suddenly discovered that he was unable to move. How is this possible? The gold-robed guard's eyes were filled with terror. Bibi opened his mouth wide. A strange energy surrounded the gold-robed guard, who stared back disbelievingly and in terror towards Bibi. He could sense his soul shudder and his divine spark shake. No, he had never heard of someone being capable of devouring another person's divine spark in battle. 2 divine sparks flew out from the gold-robed guard's head, landing into Bibi's mouth. Gulp. Bibi swallowed the 2 divine sparks, then snorted. You dare to sneak attack us? You were looking for death. As he spoke, Bibi's body flashed forward as he stored the corpse into his interspatial ring. The interspatial ring of the gold-robed guard was a moon ring as well. Boss, we now have another moon ring. Bibi snickered as he looked at Linley. Bibi, don't be in a hurry to use your god-eater ability. Linley said. There are countless dangers in this castle. We need to be prepared for all possibilities. Linley knew that executing the god-eater ability actually consumed a considerable amount of spiritual energy. It's fine. I don't know how to use soul attacks, or how to create a soul defense. It doesn't make a big difference if I use up a bit of spiritual energy. Bibi said openly, and Linley couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. Linley's group wandered about on the 3rd level of Moon Lake Castle for a long while without discovering a single person. From the 4th level beneath them, however, the faint sounds of slaughter could be heard. The 3rd level has really been cleaned out. Bibi cursed softly. All I see on the floor is blood stains, chunks of flesh, divine artifacts, and divine sparks. I haven't seen a single moon ring. Can't they leave a few behind? Why take everything away? Linley and Delia, hearing Bibi say this, couldn't help but laugh. Linley, it seems there's nothing else to get on the third floor. Shall we advance to the fourth? Delia looked at Linley. All right. Linley didn't have any other ideas. He had just acquired 2 moon rings. He was still missing one. In the dark stone staircase, Linley's group moved down carefully, one step at a time, on guard against ambushes at all times. The 4th floor was naturally quite large. Linley's team selected a primary corridor, carefully advancing forward through it. Bang! Harg! In a room in front of them, the sound of a battle could be heard, and from the sound of it, it seemed very chaotic. Most likely, quite a few people were battling each other. Linley's group exchanged glances, then silently crept closer. Whoosh! 3 figures suddenly charged out of the room. The 3 of them were very cautious. When they saw it was Linley's team, they didn't attack. One of them said, "Oh, it's 3 of you. Best of luck." As they spoke, the 3 didn't waste any more time speaking, immediately departed. They came with us. Linley's team was certain about this. There were a total of just 1,000 people in the Fiend trials. As deities, their memories were naturally excellent. When they had exited the metallic life form, with but a single glance, everyone had memorized every other person's appearance. Boom! A corpse flew out of the room, fiercely smashing against the wall, then falling to the floor. That's a Fiend trial participant. Linley's team immediately recognized him. Then, there are definitely gold-robed guards inside. Not hesitating at all, the 3 of them immediately flew in. However, before Linley's team even had a chance to draw near, a golden-haired youth charged out, collecting the corpse on the ground. The gold-haired youth clearly was very delighted. But he immediately saw Linley's team. He is also a Fiend trial participant. Linley's team was very surprised, but then they had the same thought. Can it be that for the sake of a moon ring, he went after his own side? Linley couldn't help but think back to what the silver-haired old man of the Fiend Castle had said. The old man had told them to be careful and to avoid dying in the hands of their own people, rather than that of Moon Lake castles. That really is the case. Linley's team's hearts grew cold. The gold-haired youth glanced at Linley, then without wasting any time, immediately scurried towards a different direction. It seems we need to be careful. Linley's team continued to move forward. After that event, they didn't dare to be overconfident when encountering other members of the Fiend trials. Perhaps others would desire their moon rings and attempt to kill them. Linley's team reached a narrow corridor and discovered 4 people there, all familiar figures. It was 4 men who had been seated behind them in the metallic creature. "Hey, Linley, it's you guys." The leader, a muscular bald man, laughed. "Fets fadsi, it's you guys." A smile appeared on Linley's face as well. Only, Linley's team wasn't completely relaxed either. After all, Linley's team had just seen people on the same side kill each other. In truth, they weren't really on the same side. They were just all Fiend trial participants. They didn't have much of a relationship with each other. Fets and the other 3 walked over smiling, with the leader, Fets, saying, "Well, how have you done? How many moon rings have you acquired?" When the subject of moon rings came up, Linley immediately grew guarded while sending a message with divine sense to Bibi and Delia, "Be careful. These 4 fellows were on fairly good terms with us on the way over, true, but it's possible that they have designs on us." "Got it, boss. I hope they do, actually." Bibi messaged back. Linley nodded to himself. "Oh, how many can we possibly have gotten? If we had enough, we would have left the castle long ago and returned to the metallic life form." Linley laughed calmly as he spoke. Fets and the other 3 all had a thought. Linley's words clearly suggested, although Linley didn't have enough moon rings, he should have at least acquired 1 or 2 moon rings. Right. We don't have enough either. Best of luck. The 4 of us are heading off now. Fetz laughed as he spoke. Linley nodded in a friendly manner. Although Fetz and the other 3 said they were leaving, they walked in Linley's direction. Although from the looks of it, they just intended to walk past Linley and his team, who had been on guard this entire time, were storing energy, preparing to unleash their most powerful attacks at any moment. Whoosh! Fetz and the other 3 suddenly attacked. Logically speaking, a sneak attack at such a short distance shouldn't have given Linley's side time to react. Unfortunately, Linley's team was already prepared. As though a natural reaction, at almost the same time the attack was launched. Haha, BB suddenly let out an extremely excited, wild laugh. Humph. Linley's adamantine heavy sword struck out like lightning. 2 had joined forces against Linley, while another was dealing with BB and the last one with Delia. Clearly, Fett's group knew that Linley's group was led by Linley, and thus Linley should be the most powerful one. That's why this was how they divided themselves up this way. 4 on 3. Bang. A lightning-fast exchange of blows, but 2 people on Fett's side directly fell down. One was killed by Linley's Voidwave sword, while the other was stabbed through the head by BB's dagger. Linley's entire body was covered with that earthen yellow membrane. The enemy's blade smashed down on Linley's head, but Linley's pulse-guard armor allowed him to take no damage at all. However, the Voidwave sword fell upon Fetz, causing him to collapse and die, then and there. As for the person who wanted to kill Delia, he was entangled by Delia's spatial wind while Delia herself dodged, causing him to be completely unable to draw close to her while instead being struck by Delia's spear of Cortez. Fortunately, he was able to dodge fast, and thus although stabbed in the chest, he escaped with his life. Flee. The 2 lucky survivors, seeing that the situation was grim, immediately fled. At the same time, a divine clone suddenly appeared out of Fett's corpse on the ground. That divine clone naturally collected the interspatial ring while at the same time fleeing at high speed. Swish. Linley's blood violet suddenly appeared and delivered a backhanded blow. Dimensional Decapitator. The fusion of the fast and slow aspects. In the past, Linley perhaps had only gained 10% of the total insights into these 2 aspects, but after having spent over 20 years in the Yulon continent and 30 plus years in the Infernal Realm, he had nearly mastered half of these 2 aspects. The power was more than 4 or 5 times greater now. Killing a demigod with 1 sword strike was incomparably simple. Fett's body was neatly cleaved in half. Humph. His clone was a mere demigod. Linley laughed calmly. This Fetz most likely wanted his divine clones to all be deities through their own power rather than fusing with divine sparks. Delia glanced sideways at the corpse on the floor. Linley stretched his hand out, collecting the other corpse of Fetz into his interspatial ring as well. BB, Delia, let's go inside the room and see if there's any moon rings. Linley laughed as he spoke, and then the 3 of them took into a room that seemed to be a storage room. As Linley saw it, since Fetz was the leader of the group, he should have moon rings in his own interspatial ring if they had them. However, without actually checking, there was no way to be sure. The 3 entered the room, but were surprised when they did. Huh. Linley's group discovered that one of the walls had been moved aside, revealing a tunnel within. The tunnel headed towards a downward slope, most likely having some sort of connection to the 5th floor. A secret passage. Linley's team exchanged glances. Let's not rush in. Linley said. If Fett's interspatial ring has a moon ring, there's no need for us to risk ourselves. But right at that moment. Swoosh. A human figure blew in like a gust of wind through the tunnel. Linley's group was greatly shocked, while BB cried out in surprise, "Regina, it's you." Regina saw Linley's team and was instantly overjoyed. Save me. As she spoke, she immediately flew towards Linley's group as she let out a sigh of relief. Right at this moment, 2 more people flew out from the dark tunnel. Upon seeing Regina have helpers, and 3 of them, they were so frightened, they immediately flew back into the darkness. Linley, kill them. They have a death god golem. Regina said hurriedly. What's a death god golem? Bibi looked at Regina in confusion. Book 14, Fiend, Chapter 24, Black-Robed Guards. At this moment, combat continued throughout the Moon Lake Castle. It was extremely chaotic. Within the secret room in the 4th floor, Linley's group was with Regina. Regina, seeing that Linley wasn't going to pursue those 2 person and instead asked her questions, couldn't help but feel helpless and frustrated. You guys, you wasted a rare opportunity. As Regina saw it, as soon as Linley's team heard the words Death God Golem, they should have immediately chased after him. Who would have imagined that Linley's team wouldn't move at all? That moment of hesitation meant that the 2 had definitely run far away by now. Miss Regina, you said a Death God Golem? What exactly is that? Linley asked. Regina stared at the 3 in astonishment and puzzlement. After a long while, she responded, Linley, do you truly not know, or are you just pretending? I'm beginning to think that you are intentionally making a fool out of me. Death god golems were very famous in the infernal realm. Anyone who had been here for a fairly long period of time would generally know about it. We told you to speak, so speak. Bibi pursed his lips. Regina glanced at Linley's team, then muttered quietly, I really don't know if you guys truly don't know or are just pretending. Fine, I'll tell. Death god golems are a type of unique human-shaped weapon. You can consider it a human-shaped divine artifact. Death god golems are the same as divine artifacts. They are constructed from metal, and they have divine power, only, their divine power is provided by a divine jewel. Regina continued to explain. Death god golems are incapable of soul attacks, but because they are weapons, they aren't afraid of soul attacks either. In addition, their entire bodies are extremely hard. They are generally very hard to deal with. Linley, Delia, and Bibi exchanged glances. So that's a death god golem. Bibi let out a sigh. Linley and Delia both laughed. They finally understood that the metallic creature which had battled Bibi was a death god golem. Death god golems truly were very hard to deal with. Generally speaking, even high gods who encountered death god golems would find them to be a headache. There was only one way to deal with a death god golem: kill the person controlling it. After its master was killed, the death god golem would naturally become a masterless item. If not for Bibi, the death god golem really would have been hard to deal with. No wonder the death god golem wasn't damaged much despite taking those huge hits. Linley sighed to himself, then looked at Bibi. Only, when the death god golem ran into Bibi, there was nothing it could do either. Bibi was an absolute freak. However, there were only 2 god Ader rats in the entire universe. Based on my observations, that death god golem should have been a high-level one. Regina sighed. A high-level death god golem is far more valuable than a high god artifact. Even a high god spark is far inferior to it. How expensive is it? Bibi's eyes were gleaming. Regina glanced at Bibi, then at Linley and Delia. Unhappily, she sighed, a single death god golem is far more complicated to assemble than a divine artifact, and the price is ridiculously high as well. Generally speaking, you would need 100 million inkstones. 100 million. Linley, Delia, and Bibi felt a surge of joy. It seemed that their greatest treasure was not that high god spark, it was that death god golem. That's why I wanted you to kill those 2 people. If the 4 of us joined forces, we definitely would have succeeded. That was a death god golem. Regina still felt extremely upset. Those 2 bastards got it? I really am unhappy. Linley's team only laughed. Boom. Suddenly, a massive earthquake emanated from the direction of the tunnel. Linley frowned. That earthquake should have come from fairly deep in the tunnel. It probably came from the 5th floor. Come, let's take a look. Bibi was extremely excited. Regina was also excited. Let's go take a look. Without hesitating, they headed straight into the darkness of the tunnel. The tunnel clearly was very narrow, and at most 2 people could squeeze in side by side. It was much narrower than the normal walkways of the castle. Linley's group of 4 immediately passed over 100 meters. Right here. Linley's team came to a halt. Bang. The terrifying earthquake came from high up the walls of the tunnel, and there were quite a few cracks on the walls as well. Clearly, the tunnel walls here were not protected by the magical formation. Bibi was kneeling there, peering through the cracks. Boss, hurry over. Bibi sent with his divine sense, and Linley's team immediately drew near. What was on the other side of the cracks? The tiny seams were enough for Linley to see the situation on the other side of the hidden passageway. It's that Baldy, Crompton. Linley was greatly shocked. In a wide, dark hall, there were 3 figures that were fighting as fast as lightning. Boom. Crompton was hit by a vicious kick and sent smashing into the wall, then slumped to the ground. Ugh. Crompton stared viciously at the distant black-robed guard. This black-robed guard really isn't easy to deal with. Crompton, you idiot, just stand far away and use your gravitational field to slow him down. Remember, don't affect me. The fiend who was battling the black-robed guard shouted angrily through divine sense. Crompton knew that he was weak. I got it. After acknowledging, Crompton immediately stood up on the ground. The black-robed figure that was battling the fiend suddenly trembled. The black-robed figure felt that a strange power was affecting him, as though making his body 10,000 times heavier in an instant. This is geomagnetism. The black-robed figure instantly understood. The profound mysteries of the gravitational field was also known as the profound mysteries of geomagnetism. It was also one of the 6 profound mysteries of the laws of the earth. Bang! The black-robed guard's body suddenly shuddered, transforming into a blurry illusion. Sometimes the fiend's sword would pierce through the blurry body, but be unable to harm the black-robed guard at all. That black war blade in the black-robed guard's hands, on the other hand, fluttered about with no fixed rhythm. The fiend instantly transformed into lightning, then instantly reformed, his attacks terrifyingly powerful. Bang! Bang! The blows of these 2 experts created massive earthquake-like vibrations with each exchange. The fiend and the black-robed guard were going all out against each other. How can this black-robed guard be so tough? Killing a black-robed guard isn't a 4-star mission at all. This should be a 5-star mission. Crompton cursed softly, while at the same time, he worked hard to control the geomagnetic force to affect the black-robed guard. This black-robed guard was indeed very strong. In reality, Crompton's side had been fighting him 3 against 1. 3 fiends against 1 black-robed guard. The 3 fiends were the 3 fiends that had been in charge of supervising Linley's squad. Only, this black-robed guard had 2 high god clones. One of his clones as well as one of the fiends on Crompton's side had fallen, leaving the black-robed guard with only 1 body, while the fiends only had Crompton and Poleopuer, the high god who was currently battling. The fact was that Crompton's power was very weak. Bang! Pole's sword flashed like lightning, stabbing into the blurry shadow. Ah! A miserable, agonized cry. Bang! The shadow suddenly broke apart, with the broken part of the darkness reforming into a solid object, a large chunk of a leg. And then the shadow began to shudder before reforming into a complete figure. The black-robed guard was currently furious, he was cursing to himself, fiends. All you can do is gang up on others. Pole was laughing coldly as he transformed into a bolt of lightning, once more entering battle against the black-robed guard. "Big brother, come over, quickly." The black-robed guard suddenly let out an explosive roar. Following the roar, the faces of both Crompton and Pole, who was in mid-combat, both changed. "Have to end this battle fast." Pole didn't want to go all out, but he no longer had a chance. Bellowing with rage, his body began to distort as he transformed into a ray of bluish-black lightning which mercilessly struck towards the black-robed guard. "Die!" Pole's bellow could be heard echoing in the room. The black-robed guard's face changed dramatically, but at the same time, he viciously swung out with his saber, which transformed into an illusory black shadow as it swept out towards that bolt of lightning. Bang! A terrifying energy ripple that caused even the cracks on the walls to expand. The two of them hunched over, then fell to the floor. Pole was already dead, while the black-robed guard, despite having exhausted all of his spiritual energy, hadn't died yet. "You want to kill me, but your soul defense was far weaker than mine." The black-robed man chuckled. Whoosh! A human figure suddenly appeared in front of the black-robed guard. The black-robed guard's face changed. Lifting his head up, he saw the savage-faced Crompton, who was wielding a long saber. "Die!" Crompton, ignoring all else, chopped down towards the black-robed guard with his saber. The long saber pierced through the air, seemingly instantly arriving in front of the black-robed guard's eyes. Ah! Bound by the gravitational field and heavily wounded, the black-robed guard howled angrily. Ignoring all else, he brandished his blade again, once more using his soul attack. Clang! The sabers collided, and their souls attacked each other. In terms of profoundness of soul attacks, the black-robed guard was indeed more formidable than Crompton, but his spiritual energy had been almost exhausted by now. Crompton, however, hadn't had his power affected much. A head-on collision like this meant that they were essentially on par. Bang! The black-robed guard borrowed the force of the collision to fly back and retreat. However, in the instant when Crompton had struck out with his long saber, with a flip of his wrist, he had suddenly shot out a dagger from his hand as well. Slash! The dagger buried itself into the black-robed guard's body. The black-robed guard fell from mid-air, landing at the corner of the wall. His eyes were filled with resentment, absolute resentment. "You aren't willing to accept this?" Crompton snickered. Crompton knew that he was weak, which is why he had spent money to buy expensive soul poisons, which he had stained his dagger with. This flying dagger was Crompton's greatest weapon, and it also contained the strength profound mystery of the laws of the earth. As the black-robed guard was already heavily injured, upon being hit, he immediately died. "Pole, you always showed off in front of me. You always ordered me around and looked down on me." Crompton's face was savage, and he stared coldly at the two fiend corpses in front of him. Right now, he was extremely wild. "But today, I, Crompton, am the survivor, right? Haha, and I acquired this black moon ring as well. I'll immediately become a 4-star fiend." With a wave of his hand, Crompton collected the two fiend corpses, and then looked towards the black-robed guard's corpse. But the ground was empty. The corpse was missing. How is this possible?" Crompton stared, his eyes turning round. Two fiends had died, while he, Crompton, had risked his life as well before finally killing that black-robed guard. But now the body of that black-robed guard was missing? "Hurry up and go." Linley and the other three flew at high speed out of the secret corridor, back to the 4th floor. "Haha, Crompton is going to feel awesome about that, haha." BB was extremely delighted. The black-robed guard's corpse was next to the wall, just a meter or so away from the cracks in the wall. Linley's team naturally immediately moved closer to the cracks in the wall, then immediately stored the corpse into an interspatial ring. Generally speaking, Anything at close range could be stored into an interspatial ring. Crompton's gaze immediately fell onto the wall and the cracks in it that had been caused by the battle. Inside. Crompton instantly understood. Bastard! Crompton immediately bellowed. He charged straight towards the wall, using a full-strength vicious attack with the profound mysteries of strength. The already cracked walls, with a boom, shattered apart, revealing a giant hole. Behind the hole was the secret tunnel. Moon ring, my moon ring. Crompton's heart was filled with resentment. With a moon ring, he would have completed the mission, which meant that he not only would get an enormous reward, he would also become a 4-star fiend. Where'd they run off to? Crompton stood in the middle of the hole, staring into the two ends of the secret tunnel, not able to make up his mind for the moment. But right at this moment, swish, swish, two figures suddenly appeared in the room. It was two black-robed guards. You killed Fifth Bro. The two black-robed guards stared at Crompton. Crompton turned his head and was instantly terrified. A single one of these guards was already very difficult to deal with, now two of them came. Flee. Crompton no longer cared about anything else, choosing to charge straight up. And this direction was the same direction which Linley's group had fled towards.